Hello and welcome to And the Runner-Up Is. This week on the show, we're talking the 2015 Best Actress race at the Academy Awards, where Brie Larson won for her performance in Room. But why did she beat fellow nominees Cate Blanchett, Jennifer Lawrence, Charlotte Rampling, and Saoirse Ronan? We'll explore all this and more today on And the Runner-Up Is. Hello and welcome back to And the Runner-Up Is. I'm your host, Kevin Jacobson, here to talk about the 88th year of Best Actress at the Oscars, which covered the films of 2015. We'll be discussing how Brie Larson won, why the losers lost, and who we think was the runner-up of this Best Actress race. And my guest today is making her third appearance on the Best Actress series, kind of rounding out a trio of three-timers on the Best Actress series this month. You've heard her talking with me about the Best Actress lineups of 1931, way back in the day, and 1977, and here she is joining the 21st century to talk 2015, podcast host extraordinaire for such shows as And a Rewatch Podcast, Reality and Soaps Rewatch Podcast, the Q Division Podcast. She's all over the place. Welcome back, Chelsea Eichholz.
Kevin, thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me this wonderful homework on these trying days. You really came to my rescue, and thank you.
Yeah, I didn't know that we would need rescuing for this particular week. That has been very trying for us and a lot of people on a serious note, honestly. So I will just say that I am grateful for these films that we'll be discussing.
They
today
genuinely came when we needed them the most. I'm so glad I put off my rewatch because I like to have everything pretty fresh. But man, that Wednesday morning, I'm like, okay, we're hitting play. We are cutting out the world.
Yes, we are. Yes. So let's cut out the world for another 3 hours, shall we? Well, before we talk 2015, let's talk Best Actress as a category. So you've told me your favorite Best Actress win. You gave me 3 answers on that first episode. You said Joan Crawford for Mildred Pierce, Audrey Hepburn for Roman Holiday, and how about this? Brie Larson for Room.
I was wondering if you'd remember that, because you asked me to do this year, and I'm like, I feel like he knows.
I feel like I didn't even re-listen to that, but I feel like I remembered or just subconsciously felt like this was your speed. So I don't know.
It really is.
But
it's for the depressed girlies out there.
Yes. There you go. Plus, you added Michelle Yeoh on your second appearance. So you've added a fourth to your favorites.
Oh my gosh. That win, I'm still riding high off of it. It's going to keep me going for years to come because boy, oh
Beautiful
boy,
stuff.
The following year really disappointed me.
Yes. More on that next spring, winter. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, you've told me on your second appearance that your favorite lineup in this category was 1995. All bangers, plus the people outside of who got nominated. Just an incredible year. So, gotta ask you a third question here. Who is an actress that you think will win the Oscar for Best Actress someday?
Yes, I do want this person to have won for other roles, but I genuinely think Saoirse Ronan is going to Kate Winslet her way to an Oscar. And I know this because she's had banger after banger nomination. And just you wait, she is going to win for something that we're kind of just like, huh, okay, she's in that. I mean, sure, It could have been for Little Women, but you know what? What are we doing here? Sure. I feel like that's going to happen to Saoirse because I feel like that happens to many great actresses. They always win for something that it's like, okay, glad you have one, but sure.
Yeah. Some standard historical biopic is in her future.
I know.
I mean,
look out for Blitz or something. Watch that. She'll win for supporting or something.
Why not? Seen Blitz. Here you go. Here's a supporting Oscar. Sure. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. But what's funny is that Eric Anderson, who was on the last episode, also says Saoirse Ronan, and also pretty much for the same reason, which is the whole Kate Winslet trajectory. So,
see, queer minds think alike. Me and Eric are the same kind of salty queer person.
There you go. There's something happening here that I can feel spiritually is being gonna manifest in the next few years. Yeah. Well, my other question for you, you told me your most heartbreaking loss in this category. Once again, you've given me multiple options on that first episode. You said Irene Dunn for The Awful Truth, Celia Johnson for A Brief Encounter, and Angela Bassett for What's Love Got to Do with It. Hard to disagree with any of those.
I mean, heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
Sometimes it hurts, though. So
it really does.
In a few cases. But you said on the second episode, you said your most heartbreaking snub in this category was Greta Gerwig and Frances Ha. Mm-hmm. Very good choice. And Annette Bening in 20th Century Women, which we discussed on an episode of A Woman Robbed.
We did. I put that energy into the universe, and you circled back like the following year, and we're like, Chelsea, we're gonna break this down. We're gonna have a good time. We're gonna watch good movies.
Yes, exactly. But this time, I will ask you, as opposed to who you think will win the Oscar for Best Actress, open it up completely, no limitations. Who do you want to win Best Actress that hasn't already?
I mean, we're going to continue with manifesting because Lily Gladstone losing is also in my top heartbreaks, but I want her to win so bad. If I had my way in the world, it'd be for Fancy Dance, which I saw at Sundance like 2 Sundances ago, but it came out this past summer, and it's so good. It's also like 90 minutes. It really, the gift that keeps on giving. She is amazing. She is wonderful. I wish she would win Best Actress for that. But then also, I want Tessa Thompson to win because, first off, what a woman. Sorry, I had to like drift off into space for a second. Flung into space.
A very, very important person. Yes.
Very important. But also, like, if you've seen Passing or Little Woods, you're like, oh, Tessa Thompson is an actress. She can do anything. And I want her to win.
Honestly, even Creed from this year.
Oh, she would be so good. Why can't we have nice things? Put her in.
Great question. She's going to be in the Hedda movie, an adaptation of Hedda Gabler.
I know.
Which,
so
Glenda
excited.
Jackson was nominated for that back in the day, so it's a very juicy role.
And isn't Nia DaCosta doing that too?
Yeah.
She did Little Woods, and pretty jazzed about that one. Oh,
yeah.
That'd be justice if she won for that.
Yeah. I mean, she seems like someone who could be honestly, like a Brie Larson, who just kind of like gets in on their first nomination and just wins outright.
I mean,
that would be
your
amazing.
lips to the Survivor God's ears.
Yes. Amen. More on Survivor later.
Yes, much later.
Well, all right. Let's talk about this year at the Oscars, the 88th Academy Awards. The nominees in Best Actress were Cate Blanchett in Carol, Brie Larson in Room, Jennifer Lawrence in Joy, Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years, and Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn, with the winner being Brie Larson. So, before we break down these performances, Chelsea, what are your overall thoughts on this lineup?
Oh gosh. Like, at this point in my Oscar history, my personal history, like, I was, like, so actively in following the Oscars, making predictions. I also feel like I curse a lot of people because sometimes I will leave a movie and say, oh, that person's gonna win. So I'm so sorry about Christoph Waltz winning for Django. I'm so sorry about Mark Rylance this year. I did leave a movie in, like, October and say, oh, he's probably gonna win. So sorry about that. But this year, I did make some very bold predictions that came true. And I am petty, and this was a weird Oscar race this year because it was really between, like, I want to say 3 movies to win, like, all the big stuff. And it was like, one of those was good and 2 of them I could throw away. But as for these actresses, I vividly remember seeing every single one of these movies in theaters, some of them multiple times, because I am gay and depressed, and this was, this Oscar year was
for you.
This is for me.
Yes.
I do think it's funny rewatching these. My opinion changed. Like, I did complete 180s on some of these movies because there's one of these movies in particular that I just wrote off, did not care for. And then when I watched it this week, I'm like, oh, I love being wrong. I love when a movie comes to me when I need it. and it really just hit me in a different way. I'll let people try to figure that one out.
That's very intriguing. Yes,
Yeah.
I think I might know what it is because you hinted at it to me before. But yes, that's always fun to see that. Like, that happened to me with Manchester by the Sea, honestly.
Ooh.
But anyway, really like this lineup a lot. I think no bad performances. I know there's one here that people like to clown on.
People do, but I feel
it's...
like I will be oddly defensive of the performance, not the film. That film. Ooh.
Right. That's what I was going to say. It's more of an issue of the film than her performance. We'll definitely have fun with that. But yeah, I think a lot of these are putting in great work. You know, we have 2 previous winners. We have this younger actress, in the case of Saoirse Ronan, making good on the promise of that first nomination. We have a veteran actress here, Charlotte Rampling, finally getting her due after decades and decades in the business. We have Brie Larson, whose career was really on the rise at this time and, you know, delivered a performance that obviously really moved people. A little disappointing that this was yet another sweeper year where there was no suspense that Brie was winning.
See, I agree. I'm one of those people that I want every award show to be different. I want it to be 2020, where good luck figuring out who the runner-up is, because it's probably not who you think. Like, that's the vote total I want to see. Because
Absolutely.
I love whenever we get so many great performances and everybody gets a little something. And that's this year. I feel like even outside of these 5 we got, everybody could have got a little something outside of this.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about 2006, which we talked about. It's like Helen Mirren swept that year, but like Penelope Cruz delivering career best in Voltaire and Judi Dench and Meryl Streep. Yeah. So I wish the wealth was spread a little more because in this case, I do think these are some of the best performances of some of their careers. So bummed me out to see them all going to one person, even though, you know, I still like that actress, obviously. But yeah. I think this is a year where the slate we got was good and the field outside of that was pretty good too. Lots of studio campaigning, I think, going on that I'm sure we'll probably talk about in terms of like certain people landing and supporting that maybe weren't supporting also, you know.
We'll get to that in some of the questions. This is the year that people point at for category fraud, and normally I don't give 2 shits either way about category fraud because I know it was like, again, lead actress was movie stars and supporting actress was character actors. Like, it's not about screen time. That's how it was constructed. But honestly, all these people were kind of movie stars. Let's be real. What are we doing here?
I know. I know. People like Rosalind Russell would be rolling in their grave to see the fraud going on.
And like, I do love that the one actress in particular who, like, she was so mad she wasn't supporting. We'll talk about that pretty soon, I feel like.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Also, I think a little bit worth discussing is this was a year where there were larger discussions being had about the lack of diversity among the nominees. Oscars so white 2 years in a row. All 20 acting nominees were white, and that will come up later also when we discuss a certain comment made by one of these nominees. But yes, glad we'll be talking about a lineup this time where we actually like or love most of these performances, I believe, because I feel like there was some struggle in the first 2, right?
I mean, I would say, like, was it 1931 was my first one? Something around there? There was, like, great highs and great lows. I feel like we can all agree Cimarron's one of the worst movies we'll all ever watch. Like, that's in bottom 10 ever.
Yep.
And then 77 feels so middle of the road for me personally, even though I love all those actresses, like, separately. Man, I was really on one then, too.
That was fun. Yeah. But shall we get into it here?
Let's go, girls.
Starting big. Yes. All right. Our first nominee here is Cate Blanchett in Carol. All right. So Cate getting her 7th Oscar nomination this year for Carol, pretty quickly after winning Best Actress 2 years prior for Blue Jasmine. So following that win, she was very active. In 2014, she was in The Monuments Men, How to Train Your Dragon 2, and also the 3rd Hobbit movie. So not necessarily like big flashy leading roles, but still booked and busy. And then 2015 was super busy for her, where she was in the Terrence Malick movie Knight of Cups. She had this very experimental film called Manifesto, where she played dozens of characters. She was the lead of the political drama Truth. She played Lady Tremaine in the live-action adaptation of Cinderella. Still the best Disney live-action.
Oh, we will talk about it here soon.
Yes, but finally, she has Carol here, which is her working with Todd Haynes again after I'm Not There. It's an adaptation of the Patricia Highsmith novel, The Price of Salt, which was long in the making. It was in development since 1997 and went through various issues with studios not wanting to fund the movie for various reasons. Eventually, Cate Blanchett was attached not only as an actor, but as a producer through her company Dirty Films. And by the time of the 2010s, it was supposed to be her and Mia Wasikowska, but that fell through, and Rooney Mara signed on. Todd Haynes came on after Cate was already attached, so, Cate was pretty active in wanting to be a part of this for many years. So the film is set in the 1950s in New York and tells the story of Therese Belivet, Rooney Mara, a shy photographer and shopgirl who has a chance encounter with a glamorous customer, Carol Aird, Cate Blanchett, and the pair get to know each other and become closer and closer and eventually start a full-blown romance. But things become complicated as Carol has a husband, Harge, Kyle Chandler, and a daughter, Lindy, and they're going through a difficult divorce in which Harge wants full custody of Lindy and goes to drastic lengths to try and prevent Carol from seeing their daughter again. So, this is going to be a fun one, I think, to start off with. Tell me your thoughts on Cate as an actress and your relationship with Carol and her performance.
Oh, I love starting with a Christmas movie. Carol is Christmas. Hope everybody knows.
It's the holiday season.
If Die Hard can be Christmas, Carol is like Santa Claus right there. Also, if I have any criticisms of this film, y'all people don't come for me. This is my ministry as a queer woman, so hush. I'm getting ahead of this because I have like literally 3 critiques of a masterpiece. Like, don't come for me. I know how the Carol heads are. Okay, so me and a group of friends randomly went to see this opening whenever it opened near us. And literally from the opening shot, we all just looked at each other and like, oh, this is a beautiful movie. We all need to be very good today. We sneak in alcohol all the time. I was in grad school. We're like, we're going to put the drinks down. We're going to pay attention. And then whenever the credits hit, we all just sit there for probably 10 minutes. And we're like, okay, got it. We are changed people right now. I love that half of those friends came out as queer, like within the next 5 years. And yeah.
Love that journey.
I love that for them. And it is such a beautiful film. Like, screw The Revenant. This should have won Best Cinematography. Like, sorry, this should have won Best Score. Come for me, whatever you want. My one thing is, I can tell that this was directed by a man. And yes, he's a queer man, but just like through some of the intimacy moments and just some of the longing moments, I could tell that a man was directing this. That's like my one big critique. So if you guys do want something like Carol, I'm going to recommend a movie, Desert Hearts, came out in the mid-'80s. It's literally Carol directed by a queer woman. Like, very similar concepts, same time period, except there's sunlight, it's not cold. But yeah, no, this movie's a masterpiece. Like, small criticisms aside, it's a miracle this movie exists because everything was stacked against it, including the audience, because as we've learned this past week, people don't care about queer people or women. So, like, all the questions asking about why didn't Carol do something, I'm just going to gesture at the world. Like, why didn't it get nominated? I mean, go look outside. I don't know.
The way things are. Yes.
It's literally that. We can just say homophobia, y'all. It's very easy. Also, Todd Haynes.
And it's not an exaggeration. Yeah.
It's literally just homophobia. Like, let's be real. Yeah. Todd Haynes is an out queer man, literally making these masterpieces like May, December. Come on. Like, I'm never shocked when his movies aren't nominated because sometimes the Oscars don't nominate actually good things. Sometimes they nominate Green Book or Bohemian Rhapsody. Just remember.
Sometimes they reward those movies, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so, again, that's the diversity they like. Just remember, you want the same awards for like good movies too, like real good movies like Carol. So lower your expectations with the Oscars. That's how I feel about this movie. I'm so defensive of Carol. It's always like, come fight me. I love this
You're
movie.
coming in hot.
I am coming in hot. It's not even my hottest take.
I love Carol also. I love pretty much every single detail of this movie. The performances, the writing, the cinematography,
every
the direction,
frame should be in a museum. That's how I feel
Truly.
about this movie.
The costumes, the score, like it's just down the line, impeccably put together movie. And yeah, just in service of this beautifully told story here about this relationship and having to fit into a society that is forbidding it. And, you know, Phyllis Naj's script never makes it feel like a message movie either, which I think it was very important to her to not have it be like teaching straight people a lesson about love or whatnot. It just feels very authentic, you know?
Yeah. And that's one of the things I really love is that like queer people don't have to do the homework for the audience. It's either you're on the train or you're not. And if you're not, you got to go like do some reading, do some other film watching and come back here. And you got to get on its level because we're not slowing down for you. That's the one really big thing I appreciate about this movie. That it's meeting an audience who's been wanting something like this and not just trying to green book its way through something.
Which ironically is part of why it probably didn't succeed more at the Oscars, unfortunately. But what are your thoughts on Cate's performance?
Oh my gosh, here's where my hot take is. We're going to get into the category fraud of it all. I think Rooney is more of a lead in this movie than Cate. Like,
yeah, I agree.
Thank you.
I
mean, she is Cate Blanchett. I love her so much. I wish she would work with any woman film director. Like, that was a really sad realization for me fairly recently that she hasn't. But I'm just like, she is so good. And she genuinely is like what every queer woman, it's like, yeah, we'll just drop what we're doing and go on a road trip with you. Yeah. Yeah, that's totally great. We're going to bring our glove back to you. It's fine. We'll go to this weird lunch with you out of nowhere. Yeah. That is so real.
You felt seen in that moment.
Really felt seen. Cate Blanchett is a wonderful actress. Like, let's not mince words here. That's another one. Blue Jasmine, I walked out of it. I'm like, well, she's winning an Oscar. And then
that's one
6 months later.
Very obvious. Yeah. One of the biggest slam dunks ever.
Oh, yeah.
So I will admit, even as I was seeing Carol in 2015 and rewatching it around that time even, it's a performance that I feel like I took for granted, honestly, in a way that's like, oh, well, Cate is always great. She looks incredible. It's a very good performance, but I don't know if I was like necessarily blown away. Per se, but with each rewatch, and especially this week, there's so much passion that she puts into the performance. You can really tell that it resonated with her and it meant a lot to her, which makes sense to know that she was attached to it for so many years. She was kind of sitting with it for a while. I think she's just working on so many levels with this character.
I agree. Like, and I'm not going to say it's like brave or something. It's not brave because she's being queer. It's brave because Carol is kind of an asshole. Like in this movie, she is not nice. Yeah. She's a little unstable. You see some elements of Jasmine in there whenever she's freaking out when her husband shows up. And I think those moments are really beautiful because you're seeing somebody crack and like the only thing that's kind of getting her through is the hope that maybe she gets to see this person she likes. It's like the one nice thing she has, and it's this shop girl.
Yeah. It's just so many, like, she's wounded and she's conflicted and is just trying so hard to have a good, meaningful life that is stress-free relatively and be happy, but she just keeps coming up against so many obstacles. And it is kind of, I find, quietly heartbreaking, even though, like you said, she is flawed in her way. I just feel like the best compliment that I can give it is that she truly feels and makes it look effortless.
She really
does. Like, it just, like, fits
does.
so naturally that, like, she was destined to play this part in a way.
Absolutely, because we know Cate Blanchett as this very powerful performer, like, very strong, almost no nonsense in many ways, and in this film, like, she doesn't have all of that strength to this character. She's not this hardened person. She's just you see how frail she is in so many of the scenes and how scared she is, like, just to be herself in many ways. But whenever she is with Therese, you see those softer sides come out, the confidence come out of her. And that's the Cate Blanchett we're all attracted to and want to see. Like, she's just mesmerizing how she can, like, just go from, like, so in the moment flirting with this girl to freaking out because her husband showed up unannounced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, I think their first little meet cute moment at the store where they lock eyes and Carol is buying the train set and they exchange some small talk and everything. And just the way she kind of stares at Therese and is like looking her up and down and leaving the gloves, of course, and, you know, whispering to her that she likes her Santa hat and all that, and just like fluttering her eyes a little. Like, it's very, very sensual. And also, I think she's very forward and very confident.
It is, yeah.
Kind of towing the line in just the right way to, like, play it off as just her being nice in case Therese doesn't really feel the same way about her.
Mm-hmm.
It's just very well calibrated, I think, as a woman who's very forward and has definitely done things like this in the past with other women and just knows what she wants and knows how to play the game in that way that Therese definitely doesn't. But, you know, really just understands signals really well and just like very observant. And the way she kind of stares at Therese, it's like she really studies her to the point of like trying to figure out exactly how I approach this situation so that she can get what she wants, essentially. Mm-hmm. Which is not to say that she's predatory, which some people have said in 2015.
That's just like the homophobic accusation. Anytime there's like a moderate gauge gap, like that's homophobic. Yes. If you're saying this, I'm judging you, and go away.
Right. Yeah, that definitely bothered me in 2015 when that was happening. But you know what I mean? Like, she's just very direct in a way that I've seen this film many times, but just like watching it with the lens of this, you know, watching it for her performance, I really felt her dominance, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. And being just approached by a confident person like that, and we already know, like, that Rooney Mara's character, like, she's not super into her boyfriend, she's not accepting a proposal, she doesn't know what she wants, and then she's immediately intrigued by this very confident woman who is aggressively flirting with her. And like, so many of us, like, whatever gender you are, you would probably be so intrigued by this person and want to get to know them because of how forward they are, especially during this time period of, like, that is so rigid and not only closeted, repressed, but just repressed. Yeah. It's just like, oh, this person, let's see what they're doing. They're so confident. It's like, do I want to be her? Do I want to be with her? That's a big aspect of this. And I think in many cases it's both for Therese.
The age-old queer debate is, do I want to be her or be with her?
Exactly.
Or him or be with him? Yeah, it's, very real. And also their first lunch together, I think, is just so fraught with just like this sexual tension going on. And I think you see the playfulness in her eyes of enjoying being the dominant one and enjoying a little bit how she makes Therese a little flustered, which I think she just finds charming. But also, like I said, just really studying her, and she's just so intrigued. And it's like, I feel like she thinks that there's something that Therese is holding back, and she wants to kind of draw it out of her, which is her queerness, you know? Yeah. But of course, she has the famous line, which she really tosses off with such confidence and sort of class almost, which is, "What a strange girl you are, flung out of space." And it's honestly, if someone said that to me on the first date, I would truly never forget it. Like, especially the way that she says it. It's so casual, but just like really intimate, I think, at the same time.
Like, I just don't know. It's just like how she moves her head when she says it, and just like her hair falls. You're like, oh, like, how is it so effortlessly easy for her to flirt like that? Like, I guess Carol give lessons.
Yes, for sure. I think, you know, as much as we maybe don't want to dwell on anything outside of their relationship, I also do think that she plays the scenes with Kyle Chandler as her husband really well, because there's a real melancholy, I think, there, in just being in this sort of marriage of convenience, ultimately. Like, they're getting divorced. There's this open acknowledgement of Carol's affairs with women, and there's kind of this feeling that, you know, this situation is unfortunate for both of them, but also that it's not his fault ultimately. And she kind of recognizes that, and she kind of has to bear the burden really of him being constantly disappointed and frustrated and with how things have gone with their marriage. And, you know, this poor girl, their daughter, Lindy, is just kind of caught in the crossfire here. And I think you really feel the care that she has for Lindy above all, and just, you know, that tension of it's the 50s and wanting to live this authentic life, but also having a relationship with her daughter at the same time. It's just kind of, it's exhausting, ultimately. And I think that is very evident in her face and her performance.
It really is. And, like, he plays pathetic so well opposite Cate Blanchett because, I mean, like, yes, he's a little misogynist, but, you know, it's of the time. And he's honestly just disappointed in the way his life turned out because he did love her. And he just never had all of her. And you feel kind of bad for him because of how pathetic he is and how much he wishes they could be a family again. And it's just, sorry, buddy. Also, Harge is one of the best names in a movie.
Like, it really is.
So good. So
yeah.
I know this is a podcast about actresses, but Kyle Chandler would not have minded a supporting actor nom.
Really good. Also, want to throw out Sarah Paulson as well, who is very good here.
Oh my gosh.
The real supporting actress here.
She is the real one. I would have loved her nominated. I did write in my notes the funniest thing. Like, imagine, like, falling asleep with Cate Blanchett and waking up with Sarah Paulson next to you. That is just, like, the queer girly dream. It's so funny. This is pandering to its audience in the best way.
Yes, definitely feeling seen in that moment as well.
Yes.
And I think also there is that another great line reading from Cate with her and Sarah Paulson as Abby. They're this person she had a relationship with previously, but now they're just friends, where Abby says, "Tell me you know what you're doing." And Carol says, "I don't. I never did." And it's so good because also it just speaks to her feeling how she feels and following her instincts.
Yeah.
Like, she is just a romantic at heart, really, even when it gets her in trouble and it's inconvenient within this society. Like, does she know what she's doing? Not really. She's just gonna figure her way through this like the rest of us and make mistakes and be flawed in her own way, but, you know, following her heart.
Yeah, exactly. And I do love that, like, one, this is a U-hauling movie because they are together for maybe 10 days before they're separated, literally 10 days, and are heartbroken, devastated when they're broke up. And that is lesbian U-hauling at its finest. We love a love bombing romp. This is what this is. It's just so funny. But, like, the intensity of feelings, I just, like, you have to imagine being closeted back then and just how intense it is finally finding somebody that you can be yourself with. And it just makes sense that they are so all in so fast because there's so much around them that could easily bring them apart. And it does, sadly, for a little bit.
And they want to hold on to it for dear life because they don't know if they'll ever get it again.
Exactly.
You know? So, yes. And the whole road trip sequence of the film I enjoy, even with the way things ultimately end up. But I think there's a strong hint in Cate's performance there of her almost desperately trying to distract herself from what's happening back home or, like, any responsibilities. But it does come back to her once in a while in the middle of their fun. Like, at one point when she feels this urge to call back home, but then she hangs up. And there's also this, like, hint of caution, I think, that is really subtly done and contrasts with Therese, because Carol knows how to be discreet by, like, asking for 2 beds, for example, for the hotel. Or when she's looking at the Corey Michael Smith character who introduces himself to Therese and is a little suspicious, whereas, you know, Therese is just like, either, hey, we'll just take the presidential suite, or hey, this random guy, well, I'll trust you and I'll give you our names even. She seems very, very trusting, you know?
And that's the thing. You see that guy coming in a Todd Haynes movie, run away. He's bad news.
Yeah, absolutely not. And I think it's because, you know, Carol has done this before, possibly with Abby, you know, and other women too, that like she knows the kind of code of how to interact in these situations, which I think Cate really plays the kind of like, you know, sort of head tilts and things like, are you sure you can trust this guy sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. Very much that. Like, Cate is like always on edge, Carol is. And rightfully so. And poor Therese is just so naive about all of this, thinking it's fine. We can be gal pals. And it's like, baby, no, you can't.
Yes, we can be gay. It's fine. And I'm like, it's the 50s. Let's be honest.
Bless her heart.
So, yeah, she's just the babe in the woods, truly. But when they find out that obviously the Corey Michael Smith character is actually a private investigator who's been hired by Harge to find evidence against her, which she's already sent back to Harge and there's nothing they can do. Just the anger there and the humiliation and just almost the embarrassment of being caught is very real, very powerful, very raw. I will say, every time I watch this and get to that scene of Carol wielding the gun and threatening Corey Michael Smith, I always think of that hilariously misleading ad for Carol that like the Weinstein Company made that like weirdly packaged it as like a thriller kind of.
I mean,
and it
it's
always
thrilling
takes me out
for
a
us
little
in
bit.
a different way, but sure.
Yes. But the
The
audience going
marketing
to that
for this
after
movie
seeing that would
was
be like,
insane. Like, people just
Yeah.
don't understand. They did not know what they were getting themselves into.
No. But the whole thing of like the knowledge of how this is going to completely ruin her case to defend herself is heartbreaking. And she expresses to Therese that it's not really her fault, even though Therese is kind of blaming herself for being messy. And it is similar to that sort of melancholy she has with Harge, where it's like, this isn't your fault. This is just a difficult situation. And she kind of says that in the letter that she writes to Therese after. But it is kind of painful to watch Carol really trying to take all the burden once again and just bearing the weight of that.
Yeah. It just kills me seeing her being under Harge's thumb again and going to a psychotherapist and doing everything she can. What's the kid's name? Lindy? I don't know.
Lindy.
Oh my gosh. That kid is so funny to me. She just hanging out. But it's so heartbreaking in that last part of the movie where she's like at dinner with his parents and like getting more mashed potatoes and playing nice. And you just see it kills her to play nice. Like,
yeah.
Again, if we gave Oscars for subtle acting, Cate would probably have more. Let's be real. It's always her bigger performances that she actually gets acknowledged for. But man, this in many ways is underrated Cate Blanchett, even though it's like god tier for gay people.
Right. Yes. Just for the broader culture.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, that whole sequence where they're meeting her and Harge and the lawyers towards the end is such a powerhouse moment for her, where she does just have to drum up the courage to just tell him she wants him to have full custody, but that like still allow regular visits with
and
Lindy.
that she
but
wants him to be happy. Like, I think that's pretty big of her, considering what is happening to her. And like, yes, he was wronged with like her cheating, whatever, but he was taking it to such an extreme that we recognize now that would just not be recognized back then.
Yeah, it just breaks your heart that this is the situation that she's been placed in. But yeah, she kind of knows that it's what's best for all parties to sort of move forward and to not escalate it further. And then, of course, that line that she tells Harge on her way out the door that, like, he can take or leave this deal, but if he leaves it, they'll go to court and it'll get ugly. And the way she says, and we're not ugly people, Harge.
Oh,
has never left my brain. Like, it's so
never.
heart-wrenching with that break in her voice towards the end there. It's so beautifully performed.
Oh, what a rich text of a film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're not even getting into
Speaking
all
of
the
rich text,
Yes.
where was the adapted screenplay win?
Okay, this adapted screenplay category this year haunts me because one of the worst movies I've ever seen has won. I hate The Big Short.
The Big Short.
It was
for
like,
people,
I
yeah.
suffered through that movie. I wanted to just leave. We almost did, me and a friend. And then, like, you have, like, 4 other really good movies. Even The Martian, I would say, is way better than The Big Short. I think that screenplay somehow works. But dang. No, just... ugh. Carol is beautiful, and I love her. And just imagine, just the moments of, like, they're putting on perfume and makeup and, like, putting on their pulse points and smelling it, and just how flirty and intimate that is so fun. This movie is all flirty, because you also have, like, soft boy John Magaro hanging out in there, being his little cutie pie self, Carrie Brownstein flirting up a storm. I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
We put all cute people in a movie, and you know what? We deserve this.
We deserve this. Thank you.
Yes.
And then, of course, when Carol meets Therese for dinner, which is like we've caught up to the first scene there with more context about how loaded this conversation is towards the end. It's so tense because, like, Carol essentially ghosted Therese, to be honest, and Therese just feels some resentment there, and rightfully so, but Carol is kind of, you know, figured things out with her family, and now she feels free to get her back and live more freely in a new place. And it's this look of just such love that she gives to Therese, and her eyes are watery even, like the restraint that she shows there. It's kind of breathtaking. Again, like, if anyone looked at me the way Cate Blanchett looked at Rooney Mara in that dinner scene, like, forget about it.
You're melted. It's all gone. I do love that at first Therese, like, this is not about that character, but we have to talk about this character a little bit. Like,
yeah, of course.
Carol did love bomb her a little. She bought her a beautiful camera, which, Carol, I'm free if you want to buy me a camera. Let's go on a road trip. But, like, she did all this, and yes, she was heartbroken after the whole New Year's Day situation, but you see that Therese has kind of, like, woke up a little in her life, found her direction. Like, she gets a different job. She's a photographer now. Like, she has her own place. She's not dealing with Jake Lacey anymore, which, what a cutie pie. Bless his straight heart, bless. And I love that we get to see both sides of these relationships, because we don't always in queer movies. And I love that, like, her life, she made active changes after to improve her life, because she finally figured out something about herself and maybe what she wants, and she goes for it. So she is a different person by the time Carol comes back and, like, wants her back and tells her she loves her. And I do love that at first Therese, she just leaves and doesn't think it's a good idea and made up later. And, you know, you sometimes you just flirt with Carrie Brownstein and it's nice, but sometimes you gotta go back to Cate Blanchett, because it's like, damn, my heart still loves this person. Let's see what happens.
It's understandable.
I know.
Yeah, I know. And I know we didn't really speak to this a lot, but I do think the chemistry that Cate and Rooney have is another thing that just makes this movie kind of magic. Is there is just this unspoken sort of draw that they both have towards each other that I just think is really beautifully done and without having to say words, which is
Cate
nice.
Blanchett has chemistry with everyone. Like,
well,
even go watch Ocean's 8 and you think she's dating everybody in that little scheming group.
Her and Sandra Bullock. Oh my God. Where's that origin story?
Where's that origin story? We need it. But no, I do love that the movie ends where it does. Some people have called it ambiguous. I feel like I know exactly what's going to happen. They're going to be in a relationship for a while. It might not work, but it'll work for the time being. And I think they'll be better people for knowing each other, because in many ways they did help each other, like, get out of that weird patriarchy that they've been stuck in with, like, ex-husbands and boyfriends who are just want to get married and settle down. And, like, I don't think this relationship will last, but that's okay. I just love that they had this for themselves.
I think it'll last. I believe in
You're
love.
the romantic here. I'm the cynic.
I am. I know.
Either way,
just like,
we were
I see
gifted
that
this
exchange
movie.
at the end.
Oh,
I know. Yes.
seriously, if somebody looked at me the way Cate Blanchett looked at her, like, I
Yeah.
would forget a lot of things. I would forgive a lot of
Yes.
things.
Oh no. Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, but that final exchange, the look on their face at the end, locking in, and Carol's little head tilt and the smile, it's gorgeous. It's incredible.
Again, this should have been one of two of Cate Blanchett's Oscar nominations. Like, we can talk about the old Cinderella, like the live action. First off,
Mm-hmm.
only really good live action Disney anything, not even just Princess across the board. But also, she is so good. Like, you watch Carol and you watch Cinderella, and you're like, these are two completely different people, and you understand them both so much. And I love evil Cate Blanchett. So I feel like we should have had hot and evil Cate Blanchett nominated this year. There was room.
Yeah. Well, in about 8 years, we're going to have evil and hot Cate Blanchett in the form of Tar. So there you go.
So true. She's so hot in that.
Mm-hmm. And just so despicable.
You know what?
In the
I
best
love
way.
be gay, do crime. That's, I asked for that and we got it.
Yeah. Anyway, Carol is wonderful. I'm sure everyone listening to this show has seen it probably multiple
And
times.
if you
'cause
haven't, you better stop what you're doing, go watch it, and then listen to this podcast, because then you'll understand why I am so full of emotions.
Yeah. So, beautiful film, beautiful performance. I wish we could have been talking about her fellow nominee or her fellow co-star in this category, but
you know what? Well, A Woman Robbed.
Campaigning.
Christmas edition.
There we go. All right. Well, shall we get to our next film? A big pivot here.
Let's do it.
All right. Jennifer Lawrence in Joy. So Jennifer Lawrence gets her 4th Oscar nomination here for Joy, becoming the youngest actor to receive 4 Oscar nominations. She was 25 at the time of this nomination. Personally speaking, I remember being 25 myself in 2015 because Jennifer and I are the same age and feeling very unaccomplished by comparison.
You weren't being held hostage by David O. Russell, though. There's a difference.
That's true. That's true. That's a plus. But yeah, I want to mention, maybe this is a good time to mention, actually. I rewatched the Golden Globe speech she gave for her win for Joy in comedy. There is a comment she makes that made me cringe so hard, which is when she said that she was talking about David O. Russell and said that she wants to be buried next to him.
I mean, she might. Like, he's not well.
And I'm just like, that sent a chill up my spine. But anyway, so she mostly was reprising her roles in her 2 big franchises at this time. She closed out The Hunger Games, and she was in X-Men Days of Future Past. She was also in Serena, but no one really talks about that. No one really saw that. Didn't make much of an impact, but it was another repairing with her and Bradley Cooper.
They both looked beautiful.
So,
don't watch the movie. It's so boring.
That's what I've heard. So 2015, another one of those years for her where she had a Hunger Games movie and a David O. Russell movie, just like in 2012 and 2013. History repeating there. But she is still in a great place career-wise, but over time, as we sort of discussed on the 2012 episode, there was definitely some overexposure going on over time that caused her to fall a bit in popularity as the decade went on. And with this role in Joy, she faced similar criticism she came across with Silver Linings Playbook and American Hustle especially, where she was thought to be too young for this lead role. In Joy, she's playing a real-life businesswoman entrepreneur, Joy Mangano, who became famous for inventing the Miracle Mop, which is a self-rigging mop. And the script originally came from Annie Mumolo, but once David O. Russell got involved, he rewrote it, cast his muse, Jennifer Lawrence, even though Joy was in her 30s when the events of this film were happening. The film is we'll say loose adaptation of her life story as we see her life as a mother of 2 kids, living with her eccentric family, including her ex-husband. She has a mind for invention, and one day she comes up with the idea for a self-wringing mop, and we see as she goes about trying to sell her product and get funding and eventually finding her way to QVC and find success there, but then not without her fair share of struggle both before and after. There's a lot going on in this movie that I don't want to get too bogged down in the details of this intro. We'll probably get into it. So let's talk the end here of Jennifer Lawrence's run at the Oscars, at least for now. It's been about 10 years, but tell me your thoughts on J-Law and her performance in Joy.
I will say she is a performer I generally really like because she's able to do the drama and the comedy, usually in the same thing. I do think she's excellent in Silver Linings Playbook, even though I probably wouldn't give her the win for that. I think a Golden Globe for that is perfect. I do prefer when she does a little bit more dramatic stuff. So if you guys saw Causeway from a couple years ago, she's excellent in that. It's like the opposite of Joy. And yeah, and I will say all the media overexposure, I predicted that immediately because the same thing happened to like Anne Hathaway and Name Your Favorite White Girl. You love them till you hate them. Like it's happened to Florence Pugh. People got way too overexposed and then were just criticizing her acting choices. And I'm like, gang, you guys do this every time. Give it 5 years, you'll love her. And look at this. Jennifer Lawrence came back with no hard feelings and people were happy. So love to see that. Love that for her. Love that she's not working with David O. Russell anymore. Margot Robbie, if you work with him one more time, we're going to have to fight. Really disappointed in that one. But yeah, as for the movie Joy, I did see this when it came out. And I did not remember anything somehow. This is the longest damn movie I've ever watched. I just do not understand how a 2-hour movie could be this long. I was joking with you. This movie has something in common with, let's go back way to the 30s, to Cimarron, to where I watched this movie, I paused, watched something completely different, and then came back to this movie, and I was like, God dang, I still gotta finish this. Jennifer Lawrence innocent, though, because I think she is the only human being in this movie, because everybody else is like a Looney Tune on cocaine. I just do not understand so many of these choices with everybody around her. It's insane. This movie takes over 30 minutes just to get to the idea of a mop. A mop. We could cut out so much of this movie and streamline it. What was your experience rewatching this?
Yeah, this is an interesting one because, I think all of the Jennifer Lawrence, David O. Russell collaborations have their pluses and they have their minuses, and all of them have their lovers and their haters. And just a similar sort of complaint that she is just too damn young for all of these roles that she's cast in, which I do think is fair.
It's fair. I don't mind that too much though, because I mean, acting, whatever. But yeah, this movie, I wonder like how Annie Mumolo feels about it now, because it was just taken from her and she had to fight to even get story credit. Which is, like, big for, like, residuals and just, like, her career producing stuff. But I'm just like, man, I'm very curious to see what that version of the movie would have been, probably with Kristen Wiig, because that's what they wanted to do. Yeah. I'm so curious. I feel like it...
Probably a lot better.
Probably a lot less aggressive and making me want to pause.
Yeah, exactly. I think what's interesting about Joy, between the 3 films here that she did, Silver Linings, American Hustle, Joy, it feels like the one where without her, it just would have totally sunk.
Yeah.
Like, I think his direction is so messy, the plot is so underbaked. It feels like a first draft that was never worked out.
It's like they put the first draft into a blender and just threw it and just were like, yeah, we could make something like this. What's going on? No, this movie doesn't make any sense. And like, I will say, I forgot that about the soap opera sequences. And if anybody knows me
too.
They know I love soap operas. So I genuinely screamed when I saw 3 of my favorite soap opera actors show up. Susan Lucci, who was Erica Kane, Laura Wright, who's Carly on General Hospital, was on Guiding Light, and then Maurice Bernard, who's Sunny on General Hospital. Screamed. Thrilled. That was my finally. And I do remember reading the interviews with the actors, and I sent you one of them, and they were like, they were like, yeah, there wasn't a lot of script. We kind of just made it up, essentially, which, like, yeah, we could tell. But then,
shocker, yeah.
My favorite thing was Laura Wright did an interview, and she's like, yeah, we're used to filming like 5 episodes a day. So when we were just sitting around doing nothing, I thought we were just wasting time. It's like, what are they doing here? What are they waiting for? And honestly, I think they were just waiting for an idea to come into their head to film, because you could tell that the script for this was almost non-existent. This is a pretty garbage film, and Jennifer Lawrence is the only reason to watch it. I am so sorry, Susan Lucci, there was not enough of you in here. This movie does not make any sense, and if you did not know, like, already previous knowledge, you would have no idea what time period this movie was in, because the fashion is all over the place, the technology is questionable. Like, you think you're back in the 50s at some point watching soap operas, and then you're like, oh wait, we're in the 90s? What's going on? Again, this movie is nonsense, but somehow Jennifer Lawrence, she plays it small in a lot of the moments, and I think that's the only reason I got through this, was because she was very good at grounding this insanity.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think it really fleshes out what it's even trying to say, other than, like, here's a neat lady who was an entrepreneur and defeated the odds, and that's kind of cool, right? But there's just like something missing to really tie it all together, and I truly think that if Jennifer wasn't putting in the work, it would feel even more underbaked than it is. Like, I still think she's a little too young for the role, and she still has a little bit of a baby face problem at times, but for me it's just refreshing, sort of like you said, to see her taking a surprisingly more subtle approach and sort of getting back in touch with that Winter's Bone side of her, rather than the manic, wacky, silver linings, American Hustle type of thing.
Yeah, can you imagine, like, the American Hustle energy if that was Joy? I don't know how we would get through it.
Just picturing her doing her cleaning the house, live and let die.
Exactly.
The energy there.
This is the one movie where I'm like, don't take an edible and watch it. You will be scared. But also, can we talk about the dumbest thing? Because it just kills me that, again, she gets the idea for the mop after, like, cutting up her hands. They're on a boat and they spill wine. And then she gets the idea and just goes to her daughter's room and gets her crayons. And this is not a Beautiful Mind parody. Like, that's what this movie feels like, is a full parody of every A Beautiful Mind genius person biopic, because it is so stupid. Like, what is she drawing with these crayons?
Yeah, it's very, very silly. I think the whole beginning really is so
you could cut that
absurd.
First 30 minutes off. Like,
truly. It's a lot of familiar beats of David O. Russell movies at this time. It's the wacky family, and it's also her, I think, at her worst in terms of the whole film itself. That first 30 minutes where it's just like being very blunt, being direct and yelling, and it does have occasional entertaining moments, but it's almost entirely from her and her performance. Like, this one moment of her, like, questioning how there's yogurt on her mother's floor somehow, and, like, bantering with her, or just, like, being baffled when her daughter is, like, picked out this book about cicadas that she wants her to read for, like, a bedtime story. Some of that comedic timing does save it a little bit and grounds the film a little in some semblance of reality, but I also, it's, the tones are so all over the place it's like, I don't know where to look.
Yeah, and, like, again, she's so much better than the film surrounding her, and those quiet moments really do, like, give you something to work with, but I just feel like there is something in here that could be a good movie, because you have the antagonistic relationship with the sister from Law and Order.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that conflict makes sense because they're like half sisters and jealous of each other in many ways. But it's not giving you enough. There's also like her friend from Orange is the New Black. What's her name? Dasha Polanco?
Dasha Polanco.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that friendship is something they could explore. That feels really great. But again, maybe a woman needed to direct and write this because, like, none of these interesting relationships where you know there's so much more down there, none of that is explored. This is, like, so all surface. And then, like, eventually somehow becomes a mob movie, like, low-key a little bit, but doesn't make sense.
Yes.
This movie is bananas.
It's bananas, but not really fun bananas.
No.
You know what I mean? So, well, I do think where Jennifer has always been great, dating back to Winter's Bone, is her being very confident in her own skin, you know, and just like very easily like going toe to toe with her adversaries, you know. And I think here with like Isabella Rossellini here as Robert De Niro, her father's new girlfriend, sort of questioning her before she's willing to give her investment for the mop, and Joy just kind of looking her directly in the eye and showing how she has that killer instinct. I think that type of Jennifer is one of her true strengths. Like, this is why she became like this icon, like Katniss type of resistance leader type. I also do love Isabella Rossellini here too, in her monologue about this like hypothetical situation of being in a room with a gun and like, do you pick up the gun, Joy? And like, she doesn't waver at all. It's like, you can tell she really means it, of being like, yes, I would pick up the gun.
Where is Nana Connie's godfather is the real question. That's the movie
I think we should have that conversation.
We should.
Yes.
She's glowing in this movie. Another bright spot.
Yeah.
Even though she is amongst the insanity, it's not as bad, the insanity.
Yes, agreed. But, you know, I think a scene like that could have fallen flat if you don't actually believe that this character of Joy has that sort of killer instinct in a way. And the whole stuff with like her hustling outside the Kmart to demonstrate her little, you know, self-rinsing mop there is really fun just to see her kind of gradually coming into her own. I just enjoy the parts where it's just her building confidence in her invention and figuring a way to sell it to other people in a way that makes sense to them.
I love both mop demonstrations because her friend is helping her through that with the confidence. And I think that's where the movie is interesting, because you see that Joy, like, her family does take advantage of so much of her, and that she does have this one, well, technically two support systems, also with her ex-husband, but that they are willing to do everything to make her confident and comfortable and help her through this. And that's the movie I want. It's definitely not the movie we got.
No. And also, I know this is kind of irrational, but as the film kind of settles into what it's going to be, it feels like, okay, we've got some momentum. We're going in a more grounded direction here, and we're kind of settling down from the manic energy of the first 30 minutes. And then when she goes to QVC and meets the executive, and it's Bradley Cooper, for some reason that just takes me out of it. I don't know why. That's the part where it starts to feel like dress up of like, here's David and his troupe of actors, you know, doing their thing. Like, that's just distracting to me personally.
I'm convinced that Bradley Cooper has the worst hair in David O. Russell movies. Like, something is always off about his aesthetic.
Something's going on there. Yeah. And I think he's fine in the movie. And, you know, for Joy, it's like Jennifer does a good job of showing confidence in her abilities and in her idea, knowing it's $1 million idea, but also feeling like she's kind of entered this whole new world that's a little bewildering to her, but it's like something that gradually starts to excite her because she sees the potential there and she knows this is her big break. But, you know, like I said, just like him and having Robert De Niro, and just it just starts to feel like those familiar things that are left over from those previous editions of David O. Russell, that I just wish this would actually go in probably the direction that Annie Mumolo wanted, quite frankly.
Yes,
you know?
I am just wishing we could have had her version, a version, whatever this could be, because, like, Bradley Cooper just doesn't feel like a television executive in any way. Like, he doesn't feel like that salesman who's handpicking products. And, like, yes, the demonstration scene is probably the best scene. I'd say the televised one. But he really also has nothing to do except be kind of dismissive and then say, oh, we're friends before anything. And I'm like, we've not seen you guys be friends at all.
I know.
It doesn't make sense.
Conversation about business.
Nary a one, except him saying you need to make this many products, and then she like mortgages her house, like figures out scams are going on in her company, her sister's messing things up, and it's just like, this movie doesn't have an identity. It doesn't know what it wants to be or what it wants to tell, so we are getting all of these conflicting storylines meshed together. And the funny thing is, all of these storylines mesh together, and it ends with her in front of a mirror, cutting her hair like a depressed girly. And it's like, wow, this movie is not original in any way because it's trying to do so much, and it just looks stupid.
Yeah. Throwing a lot at the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned it with the American Hustle discussion that Sophia and I had, but it just feels so assembled in the editing room. Like, the story we got from production is like, so many different ideas, and then they got to editing and they're like, shit, I have no idea how to make this a coherent movie.
And speaking of editing, it's in my notes. It took 4 people to edit this movie. And I know it was a quick turnaround. It was filmed that year, came out in like December. But 4 people to edit this movie, and it doesn't make a lick of sense? You know those editors were not having a good time.
I'm sure they weren't. There was no joy to be had there.
No joy
so to speak. I do want to talk about this one scene that is very talked about with this movie, I think, as much as this movie is talked about, which is not all that much. But when people bring it up, this is what we discuss sometimes, where we have this development, like you said, of her half-sister screwing up this part of her business by paying the manufacturer too much or something, and she didn't consult Joy ahead of time, which just enrages her. And she's at the funeral for her grandmother, Diane Ladd, who for some reason narrates this movie.
We don't know. She narrates after death as well, so...
Yeah, like a Mary Alice from Desperate Housewives here.
Yes.
But this scene where she like looks her sister dead in the eyes, so much fury in her eyes, where she says, "Never speak on my behalf about my business again." I hope I got the pausing right there.
You did amazing. I'm taken right back to the film.
Yeah, I'm sure. That feels a little bit like a first take, to be honest. The way she speaks there and conducts herself in that scene is a little shaky, and also that's where it starts to feel like suddenly we're in a mob movie, like you said. So it feels a little put on in a way that isn't super authentic to the character we had come to know by that point.
Yeah, it just doesn't make that much sense because at this point, Joy is still pretty beaten down, like confidence-wise. And like, where's this suddenly coming from that she can stand up to her sister? That feels like third act. I've got my life together. I'm gonna push back against these people who are screwing me over. Even my dad, my sister, Nana Connie, everybody, people steal my patent, everything. Like, what's going on here? Emotionally, this movie is all over the place, and you can really tell in scenes like that. I'm convinced that most of these takes were one takes, and there was no blocking, no rehearsal, and that people were just making things up for this script. I'm just convinced.
Yeah, that tracks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
This is like allegedly a movie.
Yeah. I mean, everything just snowballs from there with like the manufacturer somehow able to claim the mop as theirs, and pretty soon they're like $500,000 in debt and needing to declare bankruptcy. And for as over the top and loud as this particular scene is after that, I do think that her anger over feeling like all this hope she had is just in the toilet now and yelling about her grandmother being wrong for making her feel like she could do anything, and she has tears in her eyes. I think that is very effective, that scene, and it feels, again, more genuine than the whole, like, mob movie that we've come to think this movie as. But yeah, I do think the scene where she confronts the owner of the manufacturer about them, like, defrauding her, as much as the mob movie energy is there too, I do enjoy it just for the Jennifer Lawrence sort of, like, bluster she has, her very direct energy, and she knows she has the upper hand there, which is really fun to watch.
And that's the thing, when Jennifer Lawrence has a monologue, she can give a monologue. Like, we know this.
Yeah.
So it's really nice when she has something to do.
Yes. And, like, especially when he realizes he's been caught, he's been found out, and he offers up, like, a refund at one point, and she just sits there waiting for the deal
and
to
the
be,
number just keeps going
good enough
up
for her.
Yep.
Scenes like that, honestly, for as good as they are, that's where I do wish, like, she was a little bit older and, like, maybe playing a role like this now, like, in her career right now in her 30s, where I feel like she could really thrive.
Again, imagine a Tessa Thompson doing this. I would believe, like, the slightly older, confident, somebody who's seen some life and knows how to negotiate through things. Again, imagine a Lily Gladstone through this. Like, I can't imagine Lily Gladstone because I saw Fancy Dance. Like, that energy is there, but this movie, what a movie. It's disappointing because, you know, Annie Mumolo has talked openly about, like, she was, like, yes, the movie was taken away and she had to fight so much for credit, but she didn't want to be labeled a difficult woman for sharing her terrible experience, so she did wait a long time before actually speaking about this movie. And I feel really bad for her for that, because it just really sucks. It sucks for her just in life, having to fear that in her career, but also just, like, imagine us getting a half-decent movie out of it and letting her be proud of something she worked on for so long.
That would be nice.
Oh,
yeah.
If only.
At least we have Barb and Star. I'll just say that.
Oh, masterpiece. Best picture.
Maybe the way things worked out here led us to eventually getting Barb and Star. So maybe it all worked out in the end. Yeah. So let's get to our next nominee, shall we?
Let's do it.
Charlotte Rampling in 45 Years. Okay, so Charlotte Rampling gets her first and so far only Oscar nomination several decades into her career. To introduce her here, she was born in Essex, England. She broke into the business in the 60s as a model, and one of her first uncredited appearances was in A Hard Day's Night, so that should show you how long her career has been. Her first real role of prominence was in Georgie Girl, which we talked about way back in the 1966
that's a throwback
episode.
For you.
Yes, with Lynn Redgrave. Yes, that was fun. And so, you know, she really had this great sort of model presence alongside people like Julie Christie in the 60s. She made films like The Damned, The Night Porter, Stardust Memories, The Wings of the Dove. She got a César Award nomination for He Died with His Eyes Open. I was actually a little surprised to learn that she didn't really get much acclaim in terms of awards until like the 21st century, like well into her career. But she got some attention for films like Spy Game, Swimming Pool, The Duchess, Never Let Me Go, Melancholia. She was on Dexter. She got an Emmy nomination for the miniseries Restless. A very eclectic resume. And one thing I love that she said, actually, is I found this quote from her where she said, "I generally don't make films to entertain people." Which I just love to hear that, honestly. I'm like, I will see your movies, Charlotte. I'm not here to be entertained.
It's like, this is my job. It's fine.
Yes. I'm not here for your entertainment. Anyway. So she really is drawn to that kind of challenging work, and that's what brought her to 45 Years, which is Andrew Hayes' adaptation of a short story called In Another Country. And this is a sort of two-hander, somewhat similar to films like Away from Her and Amour, in centering on an older couple and facing challenges, although not related to medical issues, thankfully, this time. So
not
that's
as devastating,
progress.
Which is nice.
Yeah. Right. So Charlotte Rampling and Tom Courtenay play Cate and Jeff, an older British couple who are celebrating their 45th wedding anniversary. And one day in the lead up to a big anniversary party, Jeff learns that the body of a woman named Katya, who he had a relationship with prior to meeting Cate, has been found in the Swiss Alps, having been preserved in a melting glacier for 50 years. And Cate only has a vague sense of who Katya was before this, but as time goes on, she learns that Jeff has been keeping the nature of his relationship with Katya hidden, which causes her to rethink her marriage a bit. So this is definitely a heavy one. Tell me your thoughts on Charlotte Rampling overall and her performance in 45 years.
Gosh, before 45 years, she's somebody that, like, I knew of. I'd seen her in things, like, different movies and whatnot. And I didn't really have a strong opinion about her. And, like, since then, I've gone and watched more of her work, and I really like her. A lot of her TV work's really good, too. And then, like, yes, let's just acknowledge that she said some dumb shit about racist to whites with this whole Oscar so white.
Yeah.
Actresses, sometimes you can just not say anything. Sometimes you can just shut up. It's really easy not to say stupid things, you know?
Yeah, older European actresses.
In particular, yeah.
Yeah.
Always saying
Catherine
dumb
Deneuve
things.
is another one. It's like, what are we doing? Yeah.
But yeah, no, she's an actress I really like. I do like her in Never Let Me Go, because that is sad bitch cinema, my favorite thing. Again, bless this movie for being 95 minutes. Like, they knew exactly how to get in and out, upset you, bye. But I will say, it's more the director than anything else. I always feel like there's a barrier of entry with me and his movies. Like, I had this same issue with All of Us Strangers. And I think it's just how he films his movies. Like, because it's almost unremarkable, the cinematography and everything. Like, because outside of one particular scene, I think this movie, I don't know, throw $20 more at it and film it a little bit nicer, add a couple more lights. I don't know. It just feels like they didn't pay attention to, like, the blocking and everything and the intimacy of it. But I think even beyond that, I think these two lead performances are so wonderful. Like, what they're managing to do, and especially in this unremarkable space, it is just so devastating to, like, you see this, like, honestly, this average guy, older man, and he's just, like, being a grump after they discover the body of his ex, which every time they say Katya, I think of Katya from Drag Race. So, like, very different. And I just start laughing. But yeah, it's just like, you see this guy who does not think too much outside of his own weird emotions and does not realize how his words and actions are impacting his wife, and that she is holding so much of this in. And you see her just breaking down, realizing that's like, what if this whole marriage was a sham? What if this was not two people in love? What if I'm just a placeholder for somebody else? Because I mean, you always want to be somebody's first choice, and she's realizing she wasn't a first choice. Like, she even looks like the Katya who died. And it's so devastating to see that so much of her time with this man could have been a lie, a fake, just whatever, just to get by. And you just see her slowly fall into this devastation. So again, I love sad bitch cinema. And she's really good in this, like, stupid comments aside. She is so devastating. Also, I love Geraldine James as her friend. She's great in so many other things. But that friendship, there is so much there. And, like, you can see how she wants to talk more with her friend about it, but they're all friends and you don't want to, like, gossip about things. And it's devastating. I love it.
Yeah, same. I really like Charlotte Rampling whenever she shows up in anything, really. She just has such a compelling screen presence, and her voice too. Like, her voice is so resonant. Her eyes, like her hooded eyes there's so much going on there. And when she is deployed the right way, she is just so delicious to watch on screen. Even more recently in like the Dune movies, she's so evocative and fascinating to watch. And, 45 years I think is a fantastic showcase for her. And I'm so happy that this nomination happened when it was kind of on rocky ground with the precursors leading up to it.
I'm pretty sure this was like, she's just happy to get in. Because we saw, like, she didn't even get nominated at BAFTA, I don't think, for this. Did she? So it's like...
No, she didn't.
Again, it's like the one place where she probably would have been a shoo-in most times, she didn't even get there. So it's very much a miracle that she got into this lineup.
Yeah.
And I think it is a miracle because it is such an internal performance. She is not she's not Joy, we'll just say. Nothing about this movie is Joy. So, yeah, it's just a miracle
in
that
the
this...
literal sense or the figurative sense.
So true.
Nothing about 45 years is Joy.
No, none at all. Ugh.
Yes, I think she is so subtle here and also showy within that subtleness somehow. Just the way she works her face. Like the face crack she has at certain points, or just like this lingering shot of her as she's really analyzing her husband. It's so fascinating to watch. I feel like this is one of those films to watch if you're interested in becoming an actor, because like she underplays so much of it, and just that restraint she shows is all the more effective because it's all the things that she's not saying.
Exactly. And like the closest thing she has to like a big loud moment is whenever she wakes up in the middle of the night and her husband like claims to just, I just found this, you're stumbling. And she's like, no, you went up to the attic. You were looking for this. And that's like the biggest she gets. And it is so heartbreaking because he literally left her in the middle of the night just to go up to the attic to find something about an ex-girlfriend. And it's just so devastating because she's just wanting his attention and care. And you see him withdrawing from her so much and just not being nice to her. And it's not like an outward mean, it's just withdrawn. And he's like starting to smoke again. He's just wandering into town. He's not wanting to go to dinner with their friends or whatnot. And it just hurts her so much that this one person has such control over him 50 years later, and that all this time they spent together just doesn't seem to matter at that point in time.
Right. And I understand what you're saying about the distance you feel with the film itself. I actually think it does sort of work in terms of the medium is the message, sort of, in the sense of like, there's just this increasing coldness between the two of them that you really kind of are in her shoes in a way of feeling like this real distance going on here. And I also appreciate that the film doesn't do too much hand-holding and really kind of allows us to put the pieces together of what's happened here right alongside her. So like when she finds out in the beginning from her husband about her being stuck in the ice and finally uncovered 50 years later, this wild story, there is sort of a curiosity on her face at first because it is such an unusual situation. But I do love how you see her really studying his face more and more as he starts talking so nostalgically and seems very preoccupied by what's happened. And it is that little face crack she has that is so subtle, but it's really remarkable, I think, how you can tell a lot of what she's thinking, even when she doesn't say anything, which is that, like, this is kind of weird. Why is he getting so hung up on this? I vaguely know about this woman from all those years ago, but it's been like 50 years. So what exactly is going on here? Like, it's this look of someone who has known this person, her husband, for decades. And probably can read his mind just based on his reaction to certain things. So she knows that there's something off there.
Yeah, exactly. Again, she really carries so much of the film. And I do think Tom Courtenay, as her husband, he does a really good job of like being distant and unaware about how unkind he's being. But then like there are so many lovely moments between the two, like the living room dance scene. And I just think it's very cute how they are. Or like whenever he is like towards the end of the movie, actively, he's aware that he has not been nice. And he's making active choices to like try to cheer her up at the, their anniversary reception thing. And being goofy and dancing. But at that point, it's too late for her. so much has been broken inside of her, and she doesn't know this person she's married to. And I just love how those energies mesh together and the tension between them, because once he starts finally trying, she's done. And I love it.
I think it feels like this incident here really kind of shakes her out of some of the complacency she might have had of making her really reassess this relationship and reconsider the fact that they never really took photos together in their relationship and never had children. And it was something that she maybe wasn't as concerned about at the time. Like they maybe had conversations about it, but they didn't really go too deep into it. But it's like she's thinking more and more about their relationship and whether there was a reason behind that lack of, you know, a personal touch there and his unwillingness to have children. That's more than just like a vague personal preference. And it's more of her kind of like lightly prodding in this very delicate way that is really subtly done, because it's like it's clearly visibly bothering her more and more as the film goes on, until it gets to the point of, you know, like you said, at the middle of the night, him going up to the attic and looking at that picture of Katya, and that just confirms her suspicion that she hasn't actually vocalized yet, but she's definitely starting to put it together that there was more to this relationship than meets the eye. And, you know, her snapping at him to let her see it, it's very impactful.
And then when she sneaks up there and looks at the slide projector, and this is after she has told them, I wish we had taken more pictures. And he's like, of what? And it's like, well, you, me, our friends, Max the dog. And it's just
our life.
Yeah, exactly. And then you see, like, she's going through the slide projector and she's realizing everything he didn't do with her, he did do with Katya. That Katya was pregnant. That's like she died pregnant. And then you see all the different photos, and there are so many photos. And that is such a masterful scene. I think that's visually where the film shines. And I wish there was more of that throughout the film, especially with her, because I mean, her face tells a million stories. And just that heartbreak, that is like an Oscar winning scene right there. Like any other year, this is like, oh, well, right there. Duh. And
and another one later on, which I'll talk about too. Yeah.
Exactly. That's just like watching somebody's whole heart, mind, body, soul break with every click of the projector. And you just want to hug her and just do everything to make her happy. And it sucks. And that's like, that's all you can say about her situation. It just sucks. That's what happened with her life.
I know. It truly is like the bottom falls out on her life, and it all just hits her like a ton of bricks in that moment, especially seeing that Katya was pregnant. And really expressing all of that without saying a word. It's all in her eyes, those great Charlotte Rampling eyes that can really express all that sorrow to such great effect. They also have this really incredible, like, tense conversation the evening before the party where she just lands so many killer lines, I think, in the way that she looks at him and very casually she says, I'd like to be able to tell you everything I'm thinking and everything I know, but I can't. And when she says, like, she knows she was enough for him, but she isn't sure that he knows that is brutal.
It is
that is
so
a brutal
rough.
thing to say to someone. But and that they're going to sleep on it and like start again tomorrow somehow. The way she performs that is very casual, and there's no raised voices, no like heightened dramatics there.
Was that her Oscar clip scene? I'm trying to remember.
Yes, it was.
That's what I thought.
That was it. Just the way she contains so much in that scene makes it more devastating, I think, than if it was this full-blown argument.
Yeah.
You know?
The whole tone is, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. And that's what gets you.
Yeah.
Again, she is so wonderful in this movie. Like, again, even with my barrier to entry, it's just like I'm so mesmerized by it. I think my only other real criticism of the movie is some of the song choices in the background are a little too on the nose. Not the final song, but it's just like those you can tell that maybe a different director or producer would have picked something else. But other than that, I think this is such a remarkable performance and a genuine miracle that it got nominated, because this is such a subtle movie.
Yeah. And it's a miracle, like, not as a compliment to the Academy that it's a miracle. Because, like, generally, like, this should be a slam dunk to be nominated for an Oscar.
No, go look at the
But
Best
fact that
Picture nominees, and then you'll be like, yee, never mind.
Right. Exactly. But we have that reception scene at the end of the film, which is a total masterclass from Charlotte, where she is setting out to enjoy this party in honor of their relationship, hoping she can enjoy some time with her friends.
She has done all the work for, because she's the person who has put all the work into the relationship.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Right. That's the whole part of it. Yeah. And still having those lingering feelings of resentment. And she has that smile plastered on her face, but it just becomes too much to bear, I think, after a certain point. And he kind of stumbles through a apology in his little toast for all his mistakes, which she remains very stoic throughout. And then they dance to Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. And that gesture she makes at the end, when he clasps her hand and like raises their arms up together, and she just puts it right down sharply like that and watches him kind of dance away without her. I get chills from that final sequence from her.
And again, it's like
a masterclass.
It was only that morning that he decided, I'm going to make her breakfast. I'm going to be nice to her. We're going to have a nice day. And it's just like, you being nice now does not make up for everything that's happened so far.
It does not make up for 45 years.
Does not.
Literally. Yeah. It's a remarkable performance.
It really is.
Please watch it if you haven't already.
If you haven't, it's on the Criterion Channel and in the collection.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
I bought it specifically for this. I found a reason to spend money.
Very good. Appreciate it.
Yes.
So we'll see if Charlotte gets another nomination. She seems like someone who could get at least a supporting nomination down the line. She's always working. I will
never doubt her.
Yeah. Shall we move on to our final losing nominee?
Let's do it.
Okay. Saoirse Ronan in Brooklyn. So Saoirse Ronan, our next introduction for this episode, she gets her second Oscar nomination here, first in lead. So Saoirse was born in the Bronx in New York City to Irish parents, and the whole family moved back to Dublin when she was 3, and she broke into acting at a very early age on an Irish show called The Clinic when she was 9 years old. Her first film role was I Could Never Be Your Woman, working with Michelle Pfeiffer. And that was her only film before Atonement in 2007, which was her big breakthrough. She was 12 years old when she played the youngest version of Brian E. Tallis in that film and got loads of praise and earned her first Oscar nomination, supporting actress. So pretty soon after that, Hollywood really saw the potential in her and started casting her in leading roles. She did City of Ember, The Lovely Bones, which she got some attention for, but the film just was not good, so that didn't help. The Way Back, Hannah, The Host, a lot of kind of commercial mainstream fare there. She had a great supporting role in the Grand Budapest Hotel, so kind of plugging along in the early 2010s and following a career path we tend to see for younger stars. But then in 2015, she really showed her talent as a dramatic actress with this lead role in Brooklyn. And it was a big deal for her because it was actually her first Irish film and the first film she used her real accent. So Saoirse plays Eilish Lacey, a young Irish woman who grew up in the small town of Enniscorthy. It's the early 1950s, and she lives with her mother and sister. So her sister arranges for her to immigrate to Brooklyn in the hope of a better life, and we see Eilish go on the journey to America. And while she's in Brooklyn, she struggles with homesickness, but also strikes up a relationship with this Italian-American guy named Tony, played by Emery Cohen, and they eventually marry. But then she's drawn back to Ireland after a tragedy and meets this bachelor, Jim, Donald Gleeson. And Eilish finds herself torn between her hometown and the new life that she's built for herself in Brooklyn. So let's talk Saoirse Ronan, Chelsea. I feel like you have a lot to say about our gal Saoirse overall as an actress and her performance in Brooklyn.
Oh my goodness. Like, Saoirse, loved her in Atonement. I'm the person's like, maybe she should win that Oscar. Let's give one to a child. Even though I don't normally like child actors. I want them to be in school and on playgrounds. Like, let them go outside. Don't let them work.
That's fair. Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, because I am a white woman, I love Saoirse and Greta Gerwig movies. Like, Lady Bird could have won for that, but more importantly, Little Women, which is my other big Christmas movie.
Mm-hmm.
Little Women and Carol. Saoirse should have won for that. That movie should have won everything possible that Parasite didn't. Saoirse is so good. And this is the movie that I famously, like, I saw it with my friend. She's a TV writer, Jessica. Love you, girl. We saw this movie just randomly, random day. And my friend Jessica loved it. She's straight, romance girly, wonderful, brilliant person. I didn't give two shits about straight nonsense. This was 2015. And then, sometimes you're like, well, I gotta do my podcast homework. I don't remember much about Brooklyn. Wake up Wednesday morning depressed. So I put this movie on. Woo boy. Let's just talk about how this movie was maybe the best medicine I could have possibly been given. Oh. I love being wrong. This movie went from like a 3-star, like I completely forgot about it, to like maybe like a 4.25, like 4.5-star movie to me. I was like, oh no. This movie is a balm though. Wow. Again, not a long movie. It knows how to get in and out beautifully. There are so many wonderful actresses throughout. Like, again, just randomly, the girl in the boat, Georgina, I'm like, well, she's the baddest bitch in the land and I'd die for her. The one who kind of like tells her, don't eat, we're going to put some makeup on you. This is how you get through. The girl kind of mentors her through the ship. And of course, I died whenever she like locks the door, locks the other girls in. But yeah, this movie, wow. Who knew? It came to me when I needed it. It's insane it wasn't nominated for any below-the-line craft categories. Like, this, 3 nominations? How did it get into Best Picture and not, like, all the other things? Like, sometimes people are wrong. Let's just say that. The Oscars are wrong sometimes. Brooklyn deserved more. I was part of the problem in 2015, though.
Well, this is the first step, acknowledging.
This is the first step. Admit you're wrong.
Yeah. I love that. Maybe people weren't ready for it yet.
They weren't ready.
Including yourself, apparently.
I wasn't.
Yeah.
I thought it was some straight nonsense, and then I'm like, nope, this is a film about loneliness and being homesick and just trying to grow up and figure out what you want in life. Are you going to do your duty, or are you going to, like, create your own life for yourself? That's the theme of all these movies, if we really think about it.
Well, first, I just want to say that I love Saoirse Ronan, which feels like goes without saying. And spoiler alert, I think she has a perfect Oscar record. No skips. No bad nominations. No skips.
I officially can say that now. I am so sorry, Saoirse.
Yeah, I think every single one of them was deserved. I personally would have had every single one of those performances on my own personal ballot. So just wanted to say that outright. Very high on Saoirse. And I think she is incredible in this movie, honestly. Like, this is one of those films, like oddly enough, this sounds strange, but like a Erin Brockovich or like a Blue Jasmine or like a 2 Days, One Night, where the film either sinks or swims on the quality of the lead actress.
Agree, because she is literally, much like Erin Brockovich, she's like every scene of this movie. Like, you are with her the entire time, and this movie does not function without her. And then you're propped up by all these brilliant supporting women. Right.
And there's nowhere for her to hide. And my own personal history with Brooklyn is that I really respected it and really, really liked Saoirse's performance, but definitely felt like there were others, within the Oscar competition of it all that I was a little more drawn to. And I was actually quite surprised when Brooklyn got a Best Picture nomination in the end.
Same.
And in my dumb youth, I kind of made this movie not necessarily a villain, but just felt like the fact that Brooklyn got in and Carol didn't felt a little pointed to me, because I felt like there was some...
Did you have a Chelsea moment where you were like, Brooklyn?
A little bit. A little bit.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's so unfair to this movie, which is just so nice.
It is so unfair.
It's like there's nothing overtly malicious or wrong about this movie at all. It's just a really nice time. I described it in my Letterboxd review of like sinking into a warm bath. Like that's how it feels to watch this movie.
It's literally that.
Mm-hmm.
This movie is so special. Her sister already sacrificing so much because there's nothing there, and this is during like the 50s when there's like a great immigration from Ireland to New York.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't really want to go because she'll be so lonely, but she has to go because there's like no other real choice, and it is an opportunity. And once she gets there, she is so freaked out. There are the mean girls in the house of Julie Walters, where I'm sure we both would like to visit.
Yes.
And I love that the mean girls are mean at first, but then take her under her wing when, like, she starts to understand them. And then through those mean girls, she's able to find a little bit of herself. She starts taking some accounting classes and, like, really figuring out what she wants to do and what she's good at. And then she falls in love with the cutest little boy. Oh my gosh. I remember, like, this is the era of Smash, so everybody was so mean to this actor.
I remember.
Tony.
Oh,
so
yeah.
It was one of those that, oh, why is he in this Best Picture nominee? Like, just giving him the worst time. And then you watch, and then you rewatch, and you're like, he is so sweet. This boy genuinely loves her. And, like, he doesn't even talk about baseball in front of her. And that's love. He did not bother with sports.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And I love their chemistry, too. I think their interplay is so sweet.
Oh, it is so sweet. And he is just so genuine with her in a way that, like, most romances are afraid to go to because it can be a little contrite.
Yeah.
But somehow in this specific story, it makes sense because, yes, there are, like, complications because she's Irish, he's Italian, like there are those complications at the time, but they find a lot of themselves in that they support each other and that they're just happy listening to each other. And much like Lady Bird, like love and affection, that's listening and paying attention.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think she just gets this character so well in this performance, making you empathize with Eilish and feel her struggle of not knowing what to do with her life. Whether she can sort of get along fine in Ireland and have a nice, comfortable life, or if she wants to sort of take the plunge and aspire to something maybe a little scarier, but ultimately more fulfilling in Brooklyn. Like, it's a very earnest performance, I think, and she really brings so much life to the character in her eyes. This is another one where the eyes say a lot, just like a lot of these other performances. And I think she makes it look a lot easier than it actually was, honestly.
And I think that's why maybe I took it for granted.
Yeah.
Like almost a decade ago, because she does make it look effortless and it is a little genuine and a little sappy. And I was a cynic and I still am sometimes, but this time around, it really worked on me. Like, I fully texted my friend an apology, and I'm like, girl, I'm so sorry. I was so wrong 9 years ago. And I just love that, like, maybe we should award people for being effortless, because that is hard to sell.
Yeah.
Like, again, Cate Blanchett's been effortless in so many things, and it's just like, come on. But again, Saoirse is young, but she is one of our greats in acting. Like, even in bad movies, I think she pulls off some good stuff. And it's really fun to see her fully lead a film, like, completely. And this was one of her first real opportunities to own something, like, so purely her. And then she would, like, take off with Greta Gerwig.
Exactly. And I think that's what she plays so well in, that sort of like push and pull of this young woman who's kind of looking for her place in the world and all the wonderful conflicting emotions of finally venturing out. She just, really kind of specializes in that, especially in this time period. Very excited to see this little trio of nominations between this and Lady Bird and Little Women, because they all kind of are playing on similar variations of that theme, and I don't know if I personally even connected that until thinking about this movie and sort of connecting this to her work with Greta Gerwig, because they all kind of feel like of a similar piece in a way.
They really do. Like, oddly, this feels like a connective tissue of, yes, it's coming of age like Lady Bird and figuring yourself out, but there is that loneliness in Little Women, which cannot wait to listen to that episode whenever you do it.
Yeah.
It's just that connective tissue is there, and somehow Saoirse managed to take these very similar themes and make completely different choices throughout.
Right.
Because this film has to do a lot with obligation, because she's pulled back home because her sister passes, and like her mother immediately is like, oh yeah, you're gonna go to this wedding, you're gonna do this, you can work for them, just go. And immediately she finds herself being bossed around, and like all of her choices and agency are taken away from her. And yes, she could have a good life there with Domhnall Gleeson, because again, what a cutie pie. What a genuine man.
Yeah.
But it's not the man she loves.
Right.
And it's so rare that you find two really nice people that you could picture a life with, and that he's not mean about like rejection or anything. He understands. It's just a little bit of disappointment, but you know, you want her to follow her heart and go back and make the life that she genuinely wants, and let her get the job she wants, and not just take the place of her sister and like be that person who has to take care of everything. You want more for her.
You do. Yeah. And I just like that she has such a good head on her shoulders throughout, and she's not presented as just like dumb and naive and just like, I don't know what I'm doing out in the world. Like, she still is struggling at first because she's in this whole other country, and it's like a culture shock, obviously. So she kind of does become withdrawn. But yeah. I just appreciate that she provides some sense of smarts, I guess, and just like a inner confidence in her abilities to get there. Having this life with Tony, which is very sweet and rom-com-y and just very unforced. I love all of that. And the dynamic with her and Tony's family is kind of sweet too, because she definitely holds her own there in that little fun dinner sequence.
And I love his little brother.
I know. Just this adorable little, the most Italian boy you've ever known.
He looks like a little mobster, and you love him for it. Because he's like, we hate Irish people, like the full hands and everything.
Full hands, yes.
And
so good.
You see that immediately, the whole family loves her. And just, like, is so happy with how, like, just sweet and kind she is to him and everyone else. But she can still hold her own. Like, she's not, like, timid once she meets them. It's wonderful.
Right. It's just a really smart characterization without putting too fine a point on it, which I appreciate the screenplay here for that.
Again, another one that was better than The Big Short.
Absolutely, yeah. And, you know, how everything kind of changes after she's built this life and they've married, where she gets word that her sister Rose died unexpectedly, which is devastating for her, but it's also this kind of reminder of the people she left behind and how kind of unsettling it is for this new life that she's been building. And I think it's just this very profound sort of realization that not only is her sister gone, and that's painful for her, but it's like also this home, this, you know, hometown that she remembered, that she's been holding on to in her memory. She literally can't really go back to that place again because her sister won't be there. Because there's a piece missing. Yeah,
like her sister really was her home more than any of the other place or anything else.
Exactly. So that's really just crushing for her, and she really expresses that beautifully. And, you know, some of it is the script, but a lot of it is just how she reacts to, like, the news. And she's, like, talking with her mother and tearing up the second her mother starts talking about how people really loved Rose. And it's really,
and like genuinely the way this film is shot and just the production design, the costumes, the score, everything, again, better than The Revenant. Gonna just put it out there. This would be a much better cinematography nomination because everything is so lush and full.
Yes.
And it creates the time period so well, which is hard whenever you're on a smaller budget. Like they always say, don't make period pieces if you don't have money. And, like, this movie didn't have a ton of money, but, yeah, $11 million. That's not a lot of money to make a period piece. It's the same budget as Lady Bird. And they somehow got all these wonderful actors and created a whole new world in there. And it's beautiful.
It's a small movie with a big heart. Sorry,
I
had
will
to.
say my favorite line read is Julie Walters, because the girls are like bickering at dinner and Julie Walters just pipes up, "No more talk about the Lord's complexion at dinner." Everything Julie Walters says is so funny because, like, yes, she's scolding. She's a little bit more repressed. She doesn't want the girls, like, doing bad things. She gives Ailish the basement room and stuff because she knows she'll be a good girl. And it just cracks me up that, like, Saoirse is able to thrive in this house, even with Julie Walters, and get all this approval and still make it her own way. I love so much of this movie. I cannot believe how wrong I was. I love rediscovery.
Yeah, I love that this happened for you, honestly.
Thank you for this. I would have gone my whole life not rewatching this.
You would have gone your whole life loud and wrong, and now here you are.
Loud and wrong.
But I think she really brings it home by the end, too, of, you know, kind of acknowledging with the Donald Gleason character that it's like, that's nothing of his fault that she doesn't really want to be there or be with him. It's kind of like, you know, the dynamic of like, it's not you, it's me. But
literally that.
Truly.
And then also standing up for herself and her family and like her husband's name whenever the shop lady she used to work for.
Yes, the cartoonishly evil shopkeeper.
Cartoonishly evil, yet I feel like we all know those evil women who are just
completely.
Sad.
Yes.
And just the way she sticks up for herself, I am just so proud of her in that moment, because you know that at the beginning of the movie, she would never do that.
Yeah. She says, "I'd forgotten what this town is like," in response to that, which she really nails, is that feeling of like, this is just going to embolden her more to embrace her life in Brooklyn and how she loves her family and her friends, but she's much more ready now than ever to maybe leave the nest than she was at the beginning, which is much like Lady Bird. So there you go. Just saying, you know, it all kind of connects. And Little Women to a certain extent.
Her web connects us all.
Madame Ronan. Shall we move on to our winner?
Let's do it.
Okay. Brie Larson in Room. So Brie Larson is winning her Oscar on her first nomination. She's the first person to do so in Best Actress since Sandra Bullock. So it's been quite a few years by this point. And Brie Larson, born in Sacramento, California. She was very interested in movies from early on, writing and directing home movies when she was a kid. She got into the American Conservatory Theater and she started appearing in TV shows in the late 90s. Her first major role was on a sitcom called Raising Dad with Bob Saget. Short-lived, ultimately. But she starred in the Disney Channel original movie Right on Track. Meanwhile, she ventured into music, which was also kind of short-lived. She started to peak more in the early 2010s with a role on United States of Terra. Plus, she had a key role in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. But her biggest sort of creative breakthrough by this point was Short Term 12, her first true leading role in a feature film, which got her a lot of great reviews and an Independent Spirit Award nomination. So really on the ascent during this time. And then here comes 2015, where she has 3 films, Digging for Fire, Trainwreck, and Room, which was yet another peak for her. So Room, based on the Emma Donoghue novel of the same name, and it tells the story of a young woman who's been held in captivity in a shed for 7 years by her rapist, with whom she had a son who's now turning 5. So Brie really prepared extensively for this role, including isolating herself in her apartment, not exposing herself to the sun, dieting, researching, and working with Jacob Tremblay, who plays her son. So really poured her whole heart into this leading up to it. So the film follows Joy Newsome, Brie, as she tries to make the best of their living situation in the shed, which she and her son Jack call Room. And she makes a plan to finally escape. And we'll talk more about what happens from there. So let's talk Brie Larson, Chelsea, one of your favorite Best Actress wins of all time, as we said in the beginning. And I know she is one of your faves, I believe. So tell me your thoughts on Brie overall and her Oscar-winning performance.
Gang, to be fair, I loved Brie Larson since Disney Channel original movie Right on Track, because she was the more interesting of the two little race car sisters. The other one was what?
Wow.
But no, Brie Larson, so good. This should have been her second nomination because Short Term 12 is so wonderful. Like, cannot, like, emphasize how wonderful that is. Like, any other, like, if somebody had put $12 into that campaign, she maybe would have been able to get in. But it's insane that this is a comfort movie for me. But for some context, about a decade or so ago, I was looking for reading for fun. So I took suggestions, and my podcast partner, Jen, suggested, hey, go get this book Room. I think you'll love it. I had no idea what it was about. And then, of course, Chelsea read a book, which, big news for Chelsea. And I'm like, texting Jen, why the fuck would you devastate me like this? This is a great book, good times. And then I didn't even realize they were making it into a movie until it was, gosh, was it Telluride or Toronto? One of the two, it was coming out. And I was like, oh, I really want to see this. I wonder how it's going to be. And I just remember me and my friends saw this movie way too many times in theaters. Like, way too many. I don't know what we were going through in 2015. But I don't know. I really love this film. I love all the performances. Like, Joan Allen, I think a haircut from her would fix me. And I know.
Same.
Like, her new boyfriend, husband, Leo. My gosh, what a great, sweet performance. And then, of course, Jacob Tremblay should have won Best Actor. Like, hands down. And I don't I don't like children actors, but Jacob Tremblay, you can come through. You are wonderful. Not sure how they did that. I'm around a lot of children because I have so many nieces and nephews, and that is such a realistic child performance. I have seen those little tantrums and children being so curious and not understanding things. And I think that's where Brie Larson shines, is opposite him whenever she is like, she is like a live wire. You feel like she's going to snap at every moment inside that room. But you know she can't because she has to take care of this child. So you see it in her eyes and how she has to negotiate explaining things to him and, like, being kind and not scaring him in many ways. It is so complicated to work with a child like that. That is great.
I think Brie is someone that I really took a liking to in that early 2010s period, especially when she had United States of Terror. I was watching that.
Good.
That's
that's
so
me, you, and
show.
Morgan shows.
And, right? There you go. And yeah, Scott Pilgrim, and even like her appearance on Community was around that time. So I was just like getting it from movies, TV. Just, she's so great. And Short Term 12 especially.
Oh yeah.
Just really liked her screen presence. Very cool. Seemed like she had a good head on her shoulders.
Yeah.
Grounded, relatable, that sort of thing. And I really didn't know her that well, particularly from her film work in the 2000s, other than Right on Track, which is just like, yeah, I watched it when I was much younger, but then I sort of lost track of Brie Larson until the 2010s, to be honest. So
not from her being an extra in 13 going on 30?
Sure. Sure. I'll just say sure. So it felt sort of like this sort of great actress I knew from mostly TV, now showing up in bigger movies in this era and just sort of rooting for her success. It's honestly kind of how I feel about like a Iowa Debris now, just saying, just throwing that out there, who I knew from like podcast appearances and her stand-up and then The Bear and now becoming a movie star. Yes. It's just very exciting to watch that sort of rise, like following them through their career as they keep ascending. That's kind of how I felt about Brie in this time period. I also think in the years after Room, I wasn't the biggest fan of some of the career choices, to be honest. So the love isn't quite as strong as it used to be. But I was really happy for her to have this moment with Room where she really just shows so much depth in her skills as an actress beyond anything she had ever been asked to do before. I just think right away it immediately feels lived in, and her performance and her chemistry with Jacob Tremblay, how they are quite literally each other's whole world, is just really sweet. And their affection there as she looks at him and just like is studying him as he is reacting to things. There's just a real interest that she has as a mother of like giving him the best life possible given these horrendous circumstances.
Yeah.
And it's not sexy, it's not glamorous, it's just like bare bones, raw, and it may not be super flashy, but I think she just gets it right in terms of how she's become after 7 years in captivity, but also not without hope because she has Jack. Like, that is what keeps her going.
Yeah.
And that is what I most responded to with this movie at the time and still now, which I loved at the time. I still love now. I don't consider it a comfort movie necessarily, but in the times that I have watched it and rewatched it, I do find it very, as corny as it sounds, kind of life-affirming.
No,
But-
I completely understand. And I don't, like,
Yeah.
I think in the hands of a lot of other directors or even writers that this film would be pretty terrible, because I think the emphasis on seeing a lot of the abuse that she received, that we would see it, but because, like, I think because the author adapted her own book and she was so willing to make changes, because there are so many major changes from the book, and it's fine because they both exist independently and they work. I think because she kept the point of view through the son, that we are not hit with all of that trauma she's experiencing, and it's a lot easier to digest. And it's also just so much better for so many women watching this that they don't have to see this abuse, because it is, like, not everybody's gone through this situation, but pretty much every woman you've ever met has experienced some kind of terrible incident. And it's really nice that they don't show that. You just see a child not understanding what these noises are at night, or like, why do I have to hang out in the wardrobe right now? And that she's doing everything humanly possible to, like, protect this child, but also protect herself in many ways. Like, she does have to be a little submissive to this guy who could kill them. So the way she navigates all this is so fascinating in many ways, and just how she keeps going.
Yeah. And her devotion to her son is so strong that she makes him stay in the wardrobe during their little late night meetings with her captor, old Nick, so that he can't be face to face with him. And then go so far as to convince him to go to bed with her. And, like, this is her rapist, by the way, so that he won't get close to her son or hurt him in any way, like he did to her.
Exactly.
Which must be so hard for her.
And the captor doesn't even know how old the child is. And so that's, like, how much thought he's, like, put towards her and the child.
Exactly.
So it's just, she literally will give up everything for this child, and within that room, she's doing so much. Like, she's keeping him healthy as possible, considering, like, the resources she has. She's, like, trying to get vitamins for him, making him run around and stretch every day, bathing, like, before bed, like, trying to keep some semblance of normalcy, teaching him how to read. Like, imagine a 5-year-old reading Alice in Wonderland. Like, I know 5-year-olds, they are bad at reading.
Yeah, I know. But I think one of her highlight scenes, I guess, like, sequences this part of the movie is when Jack has gotten out of the wardrobe and comes face to face with old Nick, and she fully panics and, like, gets kind of physical with Nick, who then yells at her and gets violent himself. And then it's the morning after, and she finally decides it's time to tell Jack the truth, that room is not the whole world and everything else is outer space, as she had said before, that there's so much more to the world on the outside. And he becomes kind of bratty, and he doesn't believe her, and he wants a different story, and all this wonderful
and
kind
this
of
is the story he
stuff.
gets.
Right, and this is the story he gets. And she just gets more and more frustrated because he's not really listening, and kind of snaps at him to try and get him to understand. And that's where she reveals her origin story here of how she got in room, which is that she was kidnapped at 17. And it's like, she really kind of tries to simplify the story as much as possible for him.
Saying very simple things. It's like, he tricked me, he stole me.
Right, exactly.
I have a mom and a dad too. So it's like, you're trying to explain to a 5-year-old things that they completely do not understand, because you've created this whole other world to help them cope with being stuck in one place. Like, this kid thinks that TV is different planets. Apparently there's aliens and stuff, and Nick goes to different planets to get stuff for them.
Right.
So it's like trying in one day to undo something you've taught them. And the way he reacts, he is like just a frustrated child who just doesn't understand. And I think that is some of the best acting from him, because he just doesn't.
Yeah, right. And they play off each other so well in that scene in particular. And there's just a real urgency to her performance there in knowing that this is her big moment to tell him the truth and maybe start to come up with a plan to finally get out of there. I just love how you're seeing this mix of emotion going on for her, of knowing that this is, again, her big moment, knowing that he may not get it all at once because it's hard to undo 5 years of how you've shaped this boy's worldview.
Oh, yeah.
But realizing she has to just do it anyway because she needs him to survive and they need to get out of there. And I just love the urgency that she gives it from that point onward.
And she realizes because he's 5, like, he's only 5, but he is more aware. Like, he's sneaking out of a wardrobe because he's 5 and doesn't just listen anymore. And he's realizing more things. And the older, like, if they were to stand there, the older he gets, the more he's going to realize something is wrong and that they can't just stay in there. So she wants to, again, get him out while she can, while they have the opportunity.
Rip the Band-Aid off a little bit there. Yeah. And coming up with this very risky plan to have Jack pretend to be sick with this high fever and then pretend he died and wrapping him in a rug.
And giving this child 1 day notice. He's got 1 day to learn all this.
It's a lot to ask. Yeah. It's
a
multi-step process.
Like,
here.
I felt it whenever he said, "I hate you." I'm like, oh, I get it, bro.
Yeah. It's too much.
What an uplifting film.
Right? But then, having him, like, take him to somewhere else. And the way that she kind of, like, puts on a performance herself when the actual plan is happening of, like, pretending to grieve for Jack as Nick has come in and they're executing the plan here is actually quite convincing.
It is. It feels like she's letting go of so much of her own personal grief and frustration in that moment.
Right.
But also she's so terrified because that's her son. That's the only good thing she has in her life. And she just sent him out in the world, a world he just learned about. And we'll see what happens.
Hoping he listened to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. That whole sequence of him escaping the truck and gradually being able to verbalize with the police where the shed might be. I think that is the peak of the movie for me.
Oh my gosh. Like, that movie is scarier than most horror films. Like, that sequence.
Yeah, I know. I know.
And also Amanda Brugel as the police officer. It's like, okay, she's our one okay cop because she knows how to talk to this child. And you see the contrast between her in the backseat, like, trying to get to his level and understand versus her partner in the front seat saying, "Do you think he's on drugs? What do you think he's going on? It's a cult." And
right, exactly.
Yeah. That whole sequence, I'm still stressed, and I know how this movie ends.
I know. I'm stressed each time I watch it. I'm like, is this going to be the time it doesn't work out? Like, the way it's filmed is so convincing. So I do think it is, as harsh as it is to say, it's a little bit inevitable that there's a bit of a come down from that point in terms of the momentum of the film. But they obviously locate the shed and get her out of there. And then it becomes about her readjusting to life in the real world again.
And I think that's where subtle acting takes over because she's already had these bigger moments inside the shed. Right. And now she has to learn how to adjust and, like, we see her revert back to being kind of a bratty teenager because she doesn't know how to process all of this trauma that's happened to her. And she's terrified that, mostly because the doctors are in her head a little bit, that he's not going to be okay, the son adjusting. She's so worried and she sees that as her own personal failure. And I think that's where the subtle acting, I like when that comes in.
I mean, that is the interesting side we get of her afterwards, of her sort of regressing to the person she may have been at 17 and trying to acclimate again and mainly being very overprotective of Jack and just wanting to be treated normally and, you know, go back to a semi-normal life. So like the media attention at the beginning really grates on her. She picks up on her father not really making eye contact with her, and especially Jack, and her very directly confronting him about it. Like, it breaks her heart to not feel any sort of warm feelings from her father to her son, his grandson.
Yeah.
And I think she nails that feeling of, technically being out in the world again, but just being so completely traumatized from being isolated for 7 years
and
that it's just like,
bitter.
this is not what I expected from my escape,
Yeah, like she's going through the yearbooks with her son, and it's just like, what happened to them? And she's like, nope, nothing. Nothing happened to them. And you just see how angry she is at the situation, and you see that, like, she's slowly taking the pills that are supposed to help her sleep, and she's definitely abusing her medication, and that will make you angrier and a little bit more unsettled. And I think one of the better scenes is whenever all that's happening, and then she's expected to do this television interview, like, profile.
Yeah.
And that just makes everything worse, because you see how fake it all is. And it just makes her think she's a failure of a mother for not taking him to the hospital when he was a baby or something. Or it's like, oh, are you going to tell him about his dad? And it's like, no, that's not his father. And people twisting her words. And you just see her spiraling internally.
Yeah. It's not a great depiction of the media in that.
No.
But
probably a little too real.
Yeah, it feels a little bit like I just talked about Gone Girl. Like, it's a similar kind of energy, just like these like lecherous media types who are like preying on real people's trauma. But anyway,
exactly.
Yeah. I also, the sequence of how she sees him watching Dora the Explorer on her mother's phone, and it just like sets her off, and she yells at her mom for not asking her permission to do that. And as she says, I just want him to connect with something. And I'm sure that's true technically, but I think she's also talking about herself in that moment too, and her own inability to connect. And as she directly says, like, I'm supposed to be happy, and there's like this mental block that isn't allowing her to get to that place that she assumed she would be while she was kind of dreaming about it in Room, which does ring true in her performance. It does feel authentic, the sort of petulance and the resentment toward herself, and how she takes it out on her mother, in a very harsh way.
Like, her mother's the one who made her nice, and if she wasn't nice, she wouldn't have stopped to help the guy with the dog who didn't really have a dog. And, like, you see that she needs some deep therapy that, yes, she rejected earlier from the doctor, but it's also, like, you understand her not wanting to be admitted somewhere she couldn't leave.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's just complicated because she's trying to get her own life, but she's also so worried about him having a normal life as well.
Yeah, and her even suggesting to her mother that, like, hey, you got along fine without me. And, like, indicating to her new boyfriend, as if her mother didn't think about her every day that she was missing, probably. It's really harsh, but, very understandable, I think. Within her performance of feeling like she is taking out so much on her mother there. So
yeah, and I think Joan Allen really matches her energy, because you see the hurt and devastation, and that she could probably say something harsh to her daughter that moment. But she holds back because she knows her daughter's been through so much, and also Jack's right there. She doesn't want to cause more trouble or confusion for this kid. And so, again, I wouldn't have minded a Joan Allen nomination. I always like when Joan Allen's around.
Yeah, and it would have been nice because it's her last film role as of now.
Oh, that suppresses me. She should be in everything.
Very upsetting, honestly. I don't know.
I know.
Something needs to be done. If anyone's listening who can put her in a movie again, assuming she wants to be.
Please do it.
Don't do
I
it
need
against
to bully
her will.
Greta Gerwig?
Like, yeah, that would be a great fit. Her and Joan Allen. Oh my god. I love that.
Oh my gosh. Make a mother role for her.
Yes.
Joan Allen, so good. Everyone go watch Upside Down.
She would have been great in Lady Bird. Just saying.
Oh my gosh, she would have crushed.
Damn. Anyway, so Yeah, by the end, she's attempted suicide and she's had this really tough interview with a journalist. But then
Who just made her feel like crap.
Yes. But then Jack saves her, literally.
Yeah.
And she goes into treatment, and when she comes back, she tells him about how she saved him and he saved her. And even though she's not magically all better necessarily, she is getting there. And it's just this really simple and earnest expression of love in the end. That's, I think, ultimately it's not necessarily the flashiest or most impressive performance, but I think it really plays to her strengths. And she shows an emotional depth that is perfect for the role. I think Jacob Tremblay is my biggest takeaway from the film, if I'm being perfectly honest. But she is obviously putting in great work herself.
Yeah. Again, he should have won, hands down. By Leo. You didn't need it.
Yeah.
No.
His and hers Oscars. Her and Jacob.
Exactly. I'd be so happy with that. Because, what's funny to me is, she does disappear from the film for, I timed it. It's, around 15 minutes she's gone. But then you see him, it's just you feel that she's still around and that he's doing everything for her. But I really do love those scenes with him and Joan Allen, or him and the Leo guy, and becoming a quote unquote normal kid.
Yeah.
And
gradually opening up. Yeah.
Exactly. Again, so many great performances in this very small movie that I'm still shocked got nominated for so much and even won something. This is one of those wait, don't blink. Did this actually happen? Yeah. We're usually happy if this kind of performance gets nominated.
Right.
It's normally Renee Zellweger and Judy who wins. Where it's okay, Jessica Chastain and Tammy Faye. That's normally what we expect. So when it's not that, I'm ooh, this is fun.
Right. It's sort of even going further than a Beast of the Southern Wild, which got all those nominations as such a small movie. But then this did even better than Beast of the Southern Wild. So
yeah, we got to win.
Yeah.
Again, Beast deserves so much more too. Where's that score win?
I know.
Again, can you believe me and a friend, we saw this 5 times in theaters.
That's
it would have been
wild.
6. We did the Best Picture showcase and they did not get room in it. So we literally watched Bridge of Spies, Fury Road, waited way too long, and then we wanted to kill ourselves in The Big Short.
That's, yeah.
Also, I love that I can't escape soap operas because when they're watching TV in Room, I immediately saw that one of the shows they were watching was The Bold and the Beautiful. And I'm I see you, Lindsay Godfrey. I see you, JR from All My Children.
Wow.
Can't escape y'all.
A very soapy year, I guess.
It is a very soapy year.
Yes. Well, shall we get to the Oscar discussion here?
Let's do it.
All right. So, for the precursors, it was one of those years where the eventual Oscar nominees really dominated most of the Critics' Awards, which sometimes we don't get. Brie Larson won the National Board of Review. She won Chicago Film Critics, Vancouver, the Independent Spirit Award. Saoirse Ronan won the New York Film Critics Award, very appropriately for Brooklyn, just saying. And Washington, D.C. and San Francisco. Charlotte Rampling won the Los Angeles Film Critics and the National Society of Film Critics. Boston, London, she did very well. Cate Blanchett won the Online Film Critics. Yay, Online Film Critics.
We did it, Internet.
Yes, but it was pretty spread out among those. And then with the major precursors, Brie Larson just ate everyone's lunch here. She won the Critics' Choice, she won Golden Globe Drama, she won SAG, she won BAFTA. Clean sweep. Saoirse Ronan and Cate Blanchett were nominated everywhere. Jennifer Lawrence won the Golden Globe for Comedy Musical, even though Joy is not a comedy or a musical, but that's fine.
No,
and
it's a something.
It's a secret third thing that's not drama either. And she was also nominated at Critics' Choice. Charlotte Rampling, only nominated at Critics' Choice. Not Globes, not SAG, not even BAFTA. And by the way, that is worth noting because 45 Years was nominated at BAFTA for Best British Film. So this was not an eligibility issue. She just was not nominated. I don't understand it to this day. Anyway.
It's wild.
Slightly chaotic run up to the nominations, but ultimately not really a race in the end. So why do we think Brie Larson swept as she did and was the winner of this lineup?
I think Room is the most accessible of all of these films.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, yes, I love this win because normally I'm shocked if something like this gets nominated. But given the year and given the roles for women that year and the weird category stuff, this really comes down to 3 actresses, and Carol was not going to win. Like, I am so sorry. Like, spoilers, I don't think she's a runner-up in any way, because I think we're just happy that Carol got nominated for anything because of, like, I mean, Gestures at World. Come on.
Right.
Let's be real. And Room is accessible. It's, like, a little true crimey. It's got a cute kid in there, and it has somewhat of a happy-ish ending. Like, it's a 2-hour movie that's very digestible and rewatchable, and a lot of these films, like, again, I said I needed multiple rewatches for Brooklyn. A lot of people needed multiple rewatches for Carol. And the rest of it is a lot of category confusion. So honestly, I think it just lucked out. Also, it, like, got the TIFF audience. It was, like, one of the top 3 audience award winners. It's just a really easy film to watch and enjoy and appreciate what's happening. And it's honestly not that challenging. Like, a lot of these other films could be challenging in many ways and make you think a little too much. And we know the Oscars don't want you to think.
Hate that. The worst.
I know.
Yeah.
The worst. This also was just such a weird Oscar year.
Yeah.
Like, if you look at everything else, this is where, like, supporting actor was wild.
Hot mess.
For some reason, we decided that The Revenant was important. Cannot believe. And then, I mean, do we want to talk about Rooney Mara and Alicia Vikander?
We will in the questions. We'll mention that.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this was just a year where I think the interesting films were all about women, but the Oscars did not care about that. The one Oscar-winning film that was mostly about a woman had a dude as the titular character, and Charlize was nowhere to be seen. So, like, yeah, the Oscars, they just don't care about women things, and they want accessible women. And honestly, an abused woman is a little bit more accessible than everything else we were watching.
Wow. Yeah.
I say that as somebody who loves this movie.
Yeah.
I was very happy, but also I'm very realistic about the Oscars.
No, it's tough but fair. Yeah, it's interesting how it happened. I actually didn't even mention this before, but this is A24, so welcome to the party, A24.
I know.
We'll be talking
A24.
about them moving forward. New era here. But they had Room, and they campaigned a lot, and people really just fell in love with the movie as a film, which, you know, overperformed. Not only getting a Best Picture nomination, but director, which was definitely not expected.
No, not at all.
Yeah. I think it was definitely the most loved film of the 5 here, which tends to help more and more in the modern age, as we know. And I think her performance is just so directly emotional, which is not to say that the others aren't. Like, Saoirse Ronan is too, but it is just very easy to sympathize with Brie's character and her situation. And it is also a little bit of a de-glam too, which I think maybe people responded to as well.
And there was a huge emphasis on the de-glam whenever they were doing it. I remember whatever Vanity Fair profile really going into so much depth about Brie Larson. Not showering, not washing her face, everything, staying inside, which, like, yes, I don't think she was doing that to win an Oscar, because I don't think they intended for this movie to be a big awards player. I think it just accidentally happened.
Yeah. Also, you just saying that is just like, hey, I'm avoiding direct sunlight too. Where's my Oscar?
I mean, same. I am so pale.
Anyway, yeah. And I think her performance just goes deep, you know, and like once she gets out of captivity even, and you're seeing new layers to her performance, I think it just really touched people the most. And yeah, I also think there may have been some appeal for voters of like feeling like they're seeing something kind of original and new, and it's a relatively unique story and situation, but also still accessible, like you said. So I really think it's mostly that the film really helped give her a big leg up from this group.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, I think she was very charming and graceful in her speeches, and her campaigning leading up to it is just like,
Yeah, like,
people really liked her
she was
vibe.
everywhere campaigning, but she was not the loudest voice, because this is famously that Hollywood Reporter roundtable where there's like all these white women, and there's like so many of them.
Yeah.
And if you watch it, you realize she's not talking a lot. A lot of it's actually directed towards Cate Blanchett, who's like holding court, which makes sense because she's like elder statesman at this point. But it's very difficult because it's like, oh, here's this kind of fresh face. We saw her in Short Term 12. Some people are going to remember it. People are going to remember Envy Adams. So it's like all your like the memorance points for like Brie Larson. This is almost like an ingenue moment for her because they don't really have anything else to compare to yet. And then, of course, she gets stuck in Marvel for like the next decade.
Yeah. That's Hollywood. Yeah.
We have to free her.
Yes, we do. So like I said, I wish this was a more competitive race of, more people being rewarded in the major precursors, but it's easy to see why she ended up sweeping in the way she did. It's just such a likable movie, likable performance that, it just makes sense.
Yeah, she's the person who has the full arc that is complete, and I will say, she just goes through the most stuff.
Yeah.
So much is thrown at her. She gets to have the big moments and the quiet moments, so you get to see all the different levels, and you don't always get to see that in the other ones.
Exactly. On that note, I think we should get to a bunch of these questions because people were really fired up. I opened this one up to Twitter and Instagram and Blue Sky because people are now scattering to the wind in the wake of certain events happening in the world.
Including me.
Including you. So we actually got a bigger, spread of different types of people and questions here. So let's get right into it here. Starting with Ben Miller, who said, despite never being talked about, this has got to be one of the best top-to-bottom actress lineups of the decade, right?
I'm going to say yes, because there's nothing I actively hate here. And usually every year I love probably one or two performances, and then I always despise at least one. I always call this the 1937 problem, where there's like 4 amazing nominees and then that person.
Yep.
So, yes, I think this is a like low-key amazing best actress here. I think there are like 4 incredible all-timers, and then like Jennifer Lawrence is doing a good job.
Yeah. I think
she's surviving. She needs an HR department on her film sets though.
That too. Yeah. Like I said at the beginning, no bad performances. It's a really good lineup. I think the reason people maybe don't talk about it as much is that it just wasn't really a race, So
no, it just wasn't a race.
It wasn't as exciting in the moment, but when we look back on it with the benefit of history, we can be like, damn, they did a pretty good job that year.
Exactly.
Yeah. Christoph said, would Brie Larson's win be more popular today if she had made more sophisticated career choices after her win?
I don't think this is an unpopular win. I just think people really love Carol. Like, correctly so. Like, if you dislike Carol, you're no friend of ours. But,
friend of Carol.
I just think...
That should be a new thing.
Carol. It really should. We've evolved.
The new friend of Dorothy.
I mean, yeah. Like, it's tough whenever you get sucked into that Marvel contract, and then there was a whole pandemic, and, now she just has, like, so many men's rights activists in her comment section ever since Captain Marvel came out. So, Brie Larson, we hope you can escape that. If you want something good with her, go watch Lessons in Chemistry on Apple. That was very nice.
There you go. Yeah. I do think certain people do diminish actors who don't maintain the same level of quality maybe after their win and sort of retroactively be like, oh, was she actually good in that? And it's like, well, yes. It's just maybe you didn't make the best career choices that you would have picked.
And it's also one of those, yes, the Oscars, like, it's nice that she won an Oscar, but the Oscar's not always going to recognize this person. I call it the Angela Bassett problem. Like, just because Angela Bassett didn't get another Oscar nom for, almost 30 years, doesn't mean everything in between wasn't great.
Right. Yeah. And also, I like the way Christoph worded the question, which is sophisticated career choices, because the choices she did make are perfectly valid. You know, she may not have continued in like the prestige taxing dramas as much, but she followed what felt right to her at the time, you know?
And she worked with people she wanted to work with. Like, that was around the Marvel schedule that pays her bills. So, yeah. And, like, some of those choices I think are really good and maybe should have got Oscar attention, like Just Mercy or something. Like, where was Jamie Foxx's nomination for that?
Existential Rock said, Brie Larson is one of the surprising number of short-term 12 alumni who have gone on to get nominated for or win an Oscar. Who do you think what would be the best? Who will be the next nominee winner from the film? And they say the correct answer is Stephanie Beatrice, but I'll accept other answers.
I mean, that is correct. I've got to interview Stephanie Beatrice many times, and she's just a bundle of sunshine and joy.
Love it.
I want everything nice for her. I'll also go Caitlin Dever and Melora Walters, because let's open this up a little bit. That is such a great cast.
Yeah. I'll also co-sign Caitlin Dever, who I think could actually have like a Brie Larson kind of performance that just blows everyone away and just sweeps the year, you know?
Like, I'm waiting for that Emmy nomination for the next season of The Last of Us, because I know how that video game goes with that character. Yeah. So look out, y'all. You're going to be loving her very soon.
Jeffrey Kerr said, many have scoffed at Brie Larson's win, mainly because of how her career has gone since. Is that even fair, especially given that voters have no control or predictions for how things will turn out for someone in the future beyond just winning an award? Kind of reiterated that before. But, yeah.
Not fair. I think every Oscar year should just be about that year and about the performances. I'm not one who thinks that, like, for instance, we can all agree that Glenn Close, that was probably a career nomination for Albert Nobbs. She probably didn't need that. Yeah. So it's one of those, like, it's not fair. Let's just talk about the movie year. And I think we got a bunch of great nominees this year. There were a bunch of great nominees not nominated. We had a 1995 situation.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, also 1995 was an Oscars so white year, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Many ways.
Anthony Williams said, if Room came out last year, do you think she would have won against Emma Stone?
I mean, I wish. I am the Poor Things hater here. So, yeah, I did not like that Emma Stone performance. I famously think Emma Stone's best performances are the ones she's not won for or even been nominated for.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, honestly, Room's way more accessible than Poor Things. Poor Things looks like a Cheesecake Factory movie.
Yeah, the Cheesecake Factory cinematic universe. So, we need more
I'll make
in that.
that letterbox list for everyone.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, this is actually weirdly tough for me. I don't know exactly which way it would have fallen, but I assume, like you said, that the accessibility of Room would have been easier for people. I think.
Yeah. But also Lily Gladstone.
Yeah, well, I think
don't mess with
with Room, that is a little more accessible than Killers of the Flower Moon. So I think that
it's also like half the runtime.
And that
you could
too.
get through it.
That helps. Yeah. And it helps that Brie was a white woman. You know, so
it really does. Like, she is a generically beautiful white woman.
Yeah.
And so, like, I mean, come on.
Yeah. Yep. Fritz said, why did Brie receive all the nods for Room and not Jacob Tremblay? Child bias?
Yes. That child should have swept everything. He was the only lead actor in my eyes that year because, I mean, do we need to run through those 2015 nominees? It's bad.
Eddie Redmayne in The Danish Girl is the bane of my existence.
Okay, I genuinely, like, me and a friend saw The Danish Girl just out of curiosity, and when we left, there was, like, flooding and a horrible storm, and I'm like, I cannot die with the last movie I watched being the fucking Danish Girl. I was so mad, so we immediately got to our house and put something else on, because I was like, I am not dying having just seen The Danish Girl. Fuck that movie. I hate that movie. It is also historically inaccurate.
Yeah. Extremely cursed. Yeah. The Jacob Tremblay thing, I can't explain it. For some reason, it's easier for, like, female child stars, like a Patty Duke and a Tatum O'Neal and Anna Paquin and Gwen Wallace, than it is for male child stars. like the kid from Kramer versus Kramer, Haley Joel Osment, but like, you know, Jackie Cooper, but like it's for some reason it just doesn't happen for male child stars.
Yeah.
Or
and it should for him specifically.
Yeah.
I am against most child stars. I want them to have normal lives, but Jacob Tremblay seems okay.
Yeah, he's turned out good. And maybe category confusion because they did campaign him supporting, but
which is insane.
Movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's more of a lead than Brie is, you know. So yeah. Miles McHale said, "How do we get Brie Larson back to the Oscars?"
Do we think Brie Larson wants to go back to the Oscars? She's a very private person.
I don't think she cares.
She does not care. I promise you, she does not care. She is having a good time with her good Judies and making fun things. So, yes, I would like her back because I think she's a great actress. But I don't know if she wants to come back. That's a lot of unwanted attention.
Yeah. I mean, it is still possible for her. We just saw her get a bunch of nominations everywhere for Lessons in Chemistry, like you just said. So if she did something like that, but in film,
exactly,
I think it's perfectly possible, you know?
Exactly. We got to get her out of Marvel. Also, she's like our age, Kevin. She has so much time to come back to the Oscars if she wants to like make those movies.
Yeah. I'm not worried.
No.
Ethan David said, "Was shocked to see that Best Actress nominee Joan Allen hasn't acted in a film since Room and has mainly done TV. What Oscar nomination post-2015 would you cast her in?"
I mean, besides everything, like, I'm not one of those people who thinks one person is perfect for every single role. So, like, I firmly believe she could be in Lady Bird. She could have been in Marriage Story. Like, literally any kind of character actress role. Put Joan Allen in there. She's gonna be fun. Like, come on. It's like plays. I like to see every iteration of what a performance can be.
Yeah. Here's what I came up with for this. I did all leading performances here, to be clear.
Yes.
No character performances, just leading lady star, the wife.
I mean, she is a star. Oh, she'd be so good. Sorry, Glenn.
Yeah. Naiad.
Oh my gosh. I could see her in either role in Naiad.
Right? That's true. But I'd like to see her as Diana Naiad. I think she'd be fun and spiky and wonderful. And my favorite answer here is Tar.
Oh.
Where's Joan Allen's Tar?
So good. Where is her Tar? We know Joan Allen is a bad bitch. She can do it. Watch Upside of Anger, everyone.
Absolutely. Amazing performance. Yes.
So good. Joan Allen can do anything, and if that means just TV for now, fine.
Yeah. Champ Reviewer said, "Do you believe Carol not getting nominated for Best Picture was a major factor to why Cate Blanchett was not a serious contender during the awards season race?"
No, because it was nominated for Best Picture so many other places. I just think general homophobia and people, like, the heteros not understanding the film. You gotta remember, they didn't start expanding the Academy until these back-to-back Oscars So White years. They weren't inviting other people in, the different people.
Right.
No, it's just homophobia, guys. They don't give a shit about lesbians.
Yeah, like you said, it was nominated at the Best Picture at the Golden Globes. It was nominated at Critics' Choice. It was even nominated in a field of 5 at BAFTA. So, you know, I think the film was respected and well-liked. I think maybe the industry didn't love it quite as much as critics, clearly. But I also think a big part of it is she just swept for Blue Jasmine 2 years earlier.
Yeah.
So I feel like there wasn't really like a push to be like, gotta do it again.
And it's also not a big performance like Blue Jasmine. Like we've talked about, it's a very subtle film. And unless you are of the queer experience, I don't think that they understand what is going on and the romance and the longing and all the restrictions around that.
Right. They may kind of understand on a surface level, but, you know, the true depth of the film, I think, may have been lost on people. Steffi Akane said, "How did Carol not get into Best Picture? There was room. Why does the Academy not get Todd Haynes?"
I mean, it's just straight bullshit. It's homophobia. It's not being an accessible queer story with pain. You don't see them
and death.
actively and death and active suffering.
Right.
Like, even Brokeback Mountain has the death at the end. Like, come on.
Yeah.
This is just, honestly, straight nonsense.
I remember a lot of talk from people at the time finding it cold, quote unquote.
To be fair, they filmed winter.
Code word. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they
that's
filmed
true.
winter. It did look like a cold movie.
Mm-hmm.
No, people just don't understand. They just didn't understand it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Reading it.
Yes, there you go. But Richard Thompson said, studios will do anything for a better chance at a win. It's more prestigious to be together, though, given the rarity. You're starring in a movie with a co-lead. Do you go solo to have a better shot, or do the buddy system and stick to the correct category with your co-star?
Do I like this co-star?
That was not part of the question. I don't know.
I mean, in an ideal world, you go in the category. That is correct.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's not a fair world. The Oscars are a marketing scheme. Let's be real.
Yes.
It's hopefully to keep movies alive and movie history.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, you go in the correct category, but we know that is not true.
Yeah.
We'd
Here's what
probably
I'll
be
say.
Split up.
I will say it depends. Like, if I'm more favored to be nominated than my co-star in lead, I'll stay lead. If I'm not,
yeah,
I'm going supporting. I don't even care. I'll be selfish. It's fine.
Do it.
I'm putting
Who has
that
a better chance of winning?
Oscar nominee, Kevin Jacobson, in my honorific.
You need a better rate. We need to pay you
Yes.
more for your future movies.
Thank you. Perfect. Kamala Harris Dickinson, too soon,
I love the name.
said, was Rooney Mara put in supporting because she was the bottom one in the relationship?
I love gay people. I just love how pissed off Rooney Mara was about being put in supporting when she is clearly the lead of the film. Most of the film goes like through her eyes.
Yeah.
As for her being a bottom, less about that, more about Cate Blanchett being the bigger star and the 2-time Oscar winner at that point.
Yeah, there's that.
I mean, she was a nominee, but it's kind of like, whoa, she was a nominee, even though she should have won that year.
Correct. I'm actually going to say yes. I think that is part of why. That the fact that she was the bottom in the relationship. She was the submissive. I think it's also why
gay math for you kids.
I think that's why Jake Gyllenhaal was in supporting for Brokeback as well.
It makes sense. The gay maths.
Yep. Because it is Therese's story more than Carol's. And yet people saw it differently. I don't know. Ed Yo said, what other Best Actress nominee duos would you cast as Carol and Therese?
This is interesting. I feel like I've got it narrowed down. I'm going with the actual, like, the multiple leading actress nominations. Those,
me too. 5
groups. I'm not going to go with the obvious All About Eve. I won't do that. Okay. I think the funniest would be Katharine Hepburn and Elizabeth Taylor. I think the more realistic of the two that would probably make a really good movie is Anne Bancroft and Shirley MacLaine.
Hot. I love it.
Hot. Love hot people.
Yes. I said for the pure chaos of it, Shirley MacLaine and Deborah Winger.
Yes! Oh, what an insane movie that would be. I bet they would kill each other.
They would. Absolutely. That would be the last straw.
We'd be better for it.
Maybe. Yeah. Christian Barron said, if Carol was made in the 50s, who would play Carol and Therese and who would direct it?
Ooh. Okay. This is my vision. Walk with me.
Okay.
Carol is Marlene Dietrich.
Hot. Love it.
Very hot. Also experienced. Real queer people.
Right.
I'm going to reverse the canceled biopic, and Audrey Hepburn is going to be Rooney Mara. I know. Get that younger person. And then, ideally, we're just going to do some time travel-y, moving things around. Dorothy Arzner. Let her direct because she's a queer woman.
Yes.
And a real director.
I would love that for her. Yeah. Yeah.
Be fun.
I like that. I'm going to steal that answer for the director because I just was lazy and said Douglas Sirk, but
honestly, it's like the next best thing.
Yeah, exactly. My combination here was Barbara Stanwyck as Carol and For Therese, I said Lee Grant.
Ooh, hot. I would watch that. That's a good movie.
Yeah.
See, I want Carol in every combination. Just directly put that on my TV.
Yes, please. Okay. Chauncey Tellez says, is this quietly J-Law's best nomination in terms of degree of difficulty?
If difficulty is coherence, yes. Because she did not have a roadmap. Even Silver Linings Playbook had a book you could read.
A playbook, if you will.
A playbook. I think actual degree of difficulty is probably Winter's Bone, because that is such a internalized performance. But in terms of chaos on set and having anything to work with, sure, yeah, Joy is nonsense, and she made something out of it.
Yeah. In terms of degree of difficulty, I would say so. But Winter's Bone is still her best, to be clear.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Well, Antonio has a different take, who said, is Jennifer Lawrence one of the laziest nominations in the last 20 years, especially considering it was an absolutely unnecessary nomination?
I'm not going to say lazy, because lazy would be putting another person that I really hate their win into this category. But, I mean, she didn't need this nomination, to be clear.
Yeah.
Like, would I prefer a Melissa McCarthy in Spy instead of Jennifer Lawrence? Absolutely. But the Academy will never be that cool and bold.
Yeah. I think, and this is no disrespect to this actress, who is beloved and incredible, I think some of Meryl's nominations are lazier, to be honest.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I feel like there's a good section of the 80s where she's amazing, or wait, what was that movie? French Lieutenant's what? Yeah.
Iron Who? Lewis said, how close was Lawrence to winning this? It's a not great performance and a not great film, yet she won the Globe and was nominated all over the place. Sort of. So where do you think she came when all the votes were tallied?
I think she was a solid 4th place.
I was going to say 5th. I don't think there was any urgency to vote for her.
I think more people saw this than 45 years. Tragically.
That's probably true. I would like to imagine there was some pocket of the Academy that supported Charlotte Rampling at least enough to vote for her compared to Jennifer Lawrence. Like, I don't know.
It's rough.
Yeah. Fritz and Amar both want us to rank Jennifer Lawrence's Oscar nominations, and Renee asked us to rank all 3 of her nominations from David O. Russell. So we'll just combine that and put in Winter's Bone. What's your ranking?
I'm going to put Winter's Bone as number 1. Honestly, it's just whatever order the nominations came in. Winter's Bone, Silver Linings, American Hustle, Joy. At least American Hustle made me laugh.
That's fair.
It is nonsense. But yeah, honestly, American Hustle and Joy are so interchangeable to me. I've seen American Hustle exactly once, and I was tipsy. I had a great time. Don't ask me about that. And
movie. I think you should keep it that way. Don't watch it again.
Not gonna.
And what you did there was what I like to call the Jennifer Jones ranking for me personally, because that was like, her best was her first, her worst was her last, and it just went downhill.
The Jennifers.
Yeah, something about those Jennifers. Same ranking, except I put Joy above American Hustle, which I have last.
So valid, because she actually has... No, she doesn't have anything to do, but she's doing something.
Mm-hmm. She is doing something. Chelsea has something to say here. Fuck, marry, kill. Silver Linings Playbook, American Hustle, Joy. Chelsea, I want you to answer your own question.
I will answer, but you go first. I thought of this during part 2 of my Joy watch.
Wonderful. Okay. Here's mine. Fuck American Hustle. It's a messy movie, but it's weirdly enjoyable at times and has the energy of fuck of the 3 of them.
Yeah. Great one night stand.
Yes. Marry Silver Linings, by far my favorite of the 3, and kill Joy. I'm a killjoy.
Exactly. Same.
Because just don't have any desire to watch it again.
Again, alleged movie.
Yeah.
I have the exact same. I thought of this question right before watching the last half of Joy, but while I was listening to you and Sophia talk about American Hustle.
Ugh, what a time it's been with David O. Russell in this era. Dan B said, this is Jennifer Lawrence's last nomination so far. Did she deserve any other noms for any of her recent roles?
I'm gonna say Causeway because that is Chelsea cinema. It is quiet movie. Some devastation. I love me some Brian Tyree Henry. Was thrilled for his nomination. And you know what? Let's have fun. Let's say no hard feelings because what a joy that was. That's the real joy.
That's the real joy is that movie.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Gosh, what if I said Passengers? How deranged would I be? No.
I would hate that.
She's not done that many movies.
I'm going to say Mother and not apologize for it. Mother.
Don't apologize. I hate that movie. This is also a Hazard Pay movie.
Yes,
she's
that is
very
exactly
good
right.
in it. Her and Michelle Pfeiffer. They're both great.
Yeah, I think so. Owen Daly said, who will get nominated again first, Larson or J-Law?
Hopefully Larson. I would love that for her. I think she makes interesting choices if you look beyond the Marvel at other stuff she's doing, mostly on TV.
I think Jennifer will be nominated again.
She's more likely. I'm manifesting.
Yeah, but I agree. I'd like to see Brie finally get her follow-up nomination. Let's have her like Reese Witherspoon style wild, second act. You know what I mean?
Would love.
Fritz said Diane Ladd was famously upset and chagrined about the greed and corruption of movie studios with their category placement at the Oscars, complaining that 3 leading ladies were in supporting. Rooney and Alicia are the obvious 1 and 2, but who was number 3? And could Diane have gotten a nomination without them? Ugh.
I mean, the number 3, it has to be Jennifer Jason Leigh. Because
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Do I think Diane Ladd was anywhere near a nomination, even if you take them out? Absolutely not. No. Diane, I love you. You're glamorous. You look beautiful in Joy. Absolutely not. Babes, no. Absolutely not.
There's just nothing to that character. It's even less than Jackie Weaver in Silver Linings. Like, it's just, that
and
never would have happened.
I love them Krabby snacks and homemades.
Yeah. That's
she at least had those.
That's what she needed. Is more Krabby snacks. Yeah. If anyone from Joy would get into supporting, it's Isabella Rossellini. So.
Nana Connie, yes.
Principe said, was anyone predicting Charlotte Rampling that year, given no major precursor love?
I was so adamant. Sometimes I see a movie and say that person's getting nominated. I have to apologize, as I have done before. Yeah. But yeah. I'm like, no, she's getting nominated. She is. And you just, felt it early in 2016 during the nomination phase because there was so much talk about it and people actually got to see the movie.
Yeah, I remember predicting it too. I think people were predicting it also just based on, Marion Cotillard got in the previous year on the back of critic support. I think there was that feeling that she could be that this year, and she was. All right, here we go. Captain Jimmy D said, in an interview with a French station, Charlotte Rampling said that efforts to stage a boycott of the Oscars were racist to whites, quote unquote. What are your thoughts on this, and do you think it cost her the win?
I'll start with the second part. She was nowhere near the win. We were just happy she was nominated. And like I said earlier, it is so easy not to say dumb shit. Like, older European white women, shut up. They
have a lot to say.
Stop being terrible. Yeah.
I know. Yeah, and she did kind of walk it back after that. And here's what she said. She said, I simply meant to say that in an ideal world, every performance will be given equal opportunities for consideration. I am very honored to be included in this year's wonderful group of nominated actors and actresses, which feels very PR nightmare kind of.
I was going to say, her publicist did such a good job there. In an ideal world, yes.
Yeah, I just think it comes from a place of ignorance, honestly. I get where she's coming from, in a vacuum to a certain extent of, don't want to make it about race. I understand, but that's just not the world we live in. And the specific terminology of racist to whites is crazy.
It is.
What did you expect people to get from that?
Racism is different in Europe than the United States, but
Yeah.
Shut up. Don't. No.
Yeah. Do I think it cost her the win? She wasn't winning anyway, but I'm sure that probably killed her chances of even mounting any sort of momentum. So there's that.
Yeah.
But not to be cynical, but I'm guessing there may have been a small pocket of the Academy who may have secretly been like, yeah, I agree with Charlotte Rampling. That is racist to whites.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They think that, especially before they expanded and became a little more worldly.
Yeah. Joey Gentili said, according to an insider who worked on the Rampling campaign, Charlotte's team and the studio were guaranteeing a win due to the industry hype. After she made those comments, all of her campaign requests and interviews stopped and it became a DOA win. What are your thoughts on actual industry talk about Rampling winning versus pundit expectation with Brie?
I think her team and all these industry people who are probably trying to put that rumor out that's a campaign tactic saying, oh yeah, everybody's voting for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally just making shit up because, again, I gaslight toddlers all the time saying things. You can gaslight anybody into doing something. This is not real. She was never going to win. Let's be happy with the nomination.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have anything further to add. So we got a bunch of people, Fritz, Philip Braun, Andy Bayless, and Kamala Harris Dickinson, who all want to know if we would have nominated Charlotte Rampling for any other performances.
That's tough, especially considering, like, the years.
Yeah.
That's very tough. Like, I don't know.
I'll say Georgie Girl, supporting actress.
There you go. I was going to say, we got to go way back.
Such hot girl shit in that movie. Yeah.
So hot. Maybe swimming pool, but honestly, I don't think that would ever happen. That's way too competitive of a year. Way too competitive. I don't know. You know what? Just for fun, Benedetta,
yes.
Yes.
I love her in that. I haven't seen The Night Porter, but a lot of people say that's one of her best performances.
I need to watch that again. It's been too long since, like, film school.
Mm-hmm. Amanda BW said, Brie Larson arguably got the role as Captain Marvel due to this Oscar win. Had Charlotte Rampling won, which superhero would she have gone on to play?
Madam Web. I would love to see it.
Wow. Your mind. Yeah, I think she would have been the Michelle Pfeiffer role in Ant-Man and the Wasp.
I could see it.
Mm-hmm. Or let's make her
it. Although that
Agatha.
was the same year as this. You know, yes.
Agatha.
Put her in Agatha all along.
Mm-hmm.
Or a Star War. I will take a Star War for her.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Not sure whose war, but a Star's.
I like it. Jeremy Kaplan said, do you think Saoirse Ronan's performance in Brooklyn appeared so effortless that it hurt her chances of winning, even though it was incredibly skillful?
Yes, but I do think just what the film is about, it almost is like too fluffy for people. They don't always take women's stories and romance seriously. So I think that more than her actual performance. But honestly, Saoirse's nomination, it feels like we bet on this child star and she's making good right now. So, yeah. I mean, I love it now, but I didn't love it almost a decade ago, so.
I think it's a very emotive performance, but not in an overtly showy way. Like, she doesn't have the scene, quote unquote. She doesn't have her Oscar scene that super, like, stands out in that way. Yeah. Owen Daly said, which actress has the best ending close-up? Blanchett, Rampling, or Ronan?
Owen, why would you do this to me? This is hateful. Because I'm gonna be a betting woman. I'm gonna pick a different one and hope you pick the other one. I'm gonna say Ronan. I think that is a great last final shot for a film. Again, I feel like Rampling would almost be there had it been filmed differently, just the camera work and everything. But yeah, I'm gonna go Ronan.
It's Blanchett for me.
I knew it. I bet correctly.
Always have a soft spot for that one. Not gonna lie.
So good. Again, every frame of that movie should be in a museum.
Yep. Richard Thompson said, in 45 years, what is Carol, Ma, Joy, and Eilish up to? R.I.P. Kate. Yeah.
Oh, goodness. What is Joy up to? She's probably on QVC HSN right now. Just making more inventions. Hopefully she hasn't killed her sister. Carol is probably hanging out with her good Judies. She's probably still friends with Abby and Therese. She's probably had a few different other girlfriends. They all have. And I hope for like a queer Golden Girls situation for them. I want that for them. Eilish probably has a billion children and is having a great old time with her family. And Ma, you know what? Ma is well adjusted. She has her own house now. Jack's grown up. He's well adjusted. Joan Allen is still there. I want the best for all of them. I want a nice, peaceful life. And they all have a dog.
Wow. I love it. Well, what I said is actually similar with Eilish. I think she is a grandmother and she has a huge family. For Carol, I said she is in a domestic partnership with Therese and they grow old together because I'm a romantic at heart.
You are a romantic.
Yes. So Joy is enjoying her millions on a beach somewhere with a mimosa. And Ma is, this was my most deranged scenario. Yes. I said, I truly don't know where I got this from, but it just made sense in my head. I see Ma attending a ceremony somewhere for Jack, who has been like elected to Congress or something. Like, aww. There's something
I would love that
in Jack and his story that I feel like could be very inspiring to people, and he would just become like a public figure. That's what I'm picturing.
The kid's got a sweetheart. We gotta like protect him.
Yeah.
He's a good egg.
Adam said, which former Best Actress winner should present each nominee 2008 style?
Ooh. So Charlotte Rampling. We're gonna pretend like every old Best Actress nominee is alive for this.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say her Georgie Girl co-star for that.
Oh. Well, she's not a Best Actress winner, but that's fine.
Oh, that's true. Crap. Who's a European who's won? I'll think about her later. Saoirse Ronan. Oh my gosh. For Saoirse, I'm going to go with a fellow ginger, Julianne Moore, because you have to have the previous winner from that year.
True.
Gotta have her there. I feel like Meryl has to do one of these gals. I'm going to go Meryl for Jennifer Lawrence, just so we can have that full circle I beat Meryl moment from her previous Golden Globes speech.
Love it.
Cate Blanchett. Oh my gosh. So many people could do this. Cate is wonderful. I think I'm gonna go with... How deranged would it be to have Gwyneth Paltrow do it?
Why not?
Let's do it. Let's choose violence.
Love it.
I'm gonna go... I think Susan Sarandon. I just always want her on a stage where she can talk and maybe say something wild. So we'll do that for Charlotte Rampling because they both say wild things
oh my God.
in different ways.
That is violence.
That is. And now I'm just going with people I love. So I'm going to say Emma Thompson. I want her there. Just off script, saying whatever she wants about Brie Larson. Just let him go.
Love it.
I feel like they would have a good time.
Yeah. I love that. Great combo. For my Cate Blanchett, I said Julianne Moore for the Todd Haynes connection.
Ah, yes. Smart.
For Jennifer Lawrence, I just said Julia Roberts just because there's like a vague Erin Brockovich feeling to Joy, like hardworking single mom, you know.
Gone through the same actor misogyny cycle with the media of people loving and hating them.
And that.
Yeah.
For Charlotte Rampling, let's do another swinging 60s girl and bring back Julie Christie.
Yes! Why didn't I think of that? I love Julie Christie.
Mm-hmm. For Saoirse Ronan, I said Emma Thompson. That just speaks to me. That just feels like something she would connect on. And for Brie Larson, I feel like Jodie Foster makes sense.
I almost picked Jodie Foster.
Yeah.
Spiritually, the energy matches.
Child actor making the transition. Yeah. I feel like she would really connect to a movie like Room. That just feels like Jodie Foster would really love that for some reason.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know. Joey Gentile said recast the 2010s Oscar talent and Karen Black in these roles. Jackie Weaver, Lady Gaga, Scarlett Johansson, Ruth Negga.
Ooh. I feel like we have to put Lady Gaga in Joy. I think that would be deranged in a fun way. Let's see. Jackie Weaver? You know what? I want to see Jackie Weaver in 45 years because I think there's something there. Let her tap into a different kind of energy. Also keep her away from David O. Russell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh. I want to see Ruth Nega's Brooklyn.
Yep.
That just makes sense spiritually to me. And then I have Scarlett Johansson and Karen Black. So, Karen Black in Room and Scarlett Johansson and Carol, I guess, because ScarJo loves to take queer girly roles, you know?
That is, yeah, that's
she loves to co-opt culture. Kate, we've adopted you. You're canonically queer in so many movies.
Exactly. I had Ruth Negga in Brooklyn. I had Jackie Weaver in 45 Years.
Nice.
I have Scarlett Johansson in Joy.
Nice. Let her get through that trauma of filming.
Yeah. I have Lady Gaga in Room.
I could see it.
Just because I could really see it the most of those. Yeah, exactly. You could the campaign trail, she would have a lot of things to say about her prep work and all that. And then Karen Black, putting you in Carol. Let's go.
I would watch it.
Yep.
Let's go, girls.
Juan Carlos Ojano said, who was the realistic sixth?
Honestly, I think the realistic sixth place is our supporting actress winner.
That's what I said. Oh my God, our minds.
There you go. Great
Alicia
minds.
Vikander. Which
we all pretend that's for Ex Machina. We all pretend that's what the win is for.
Yeah, I love it. You stole my thunder.
Yay.
Both Rolando and Christoph both want to know why Charlize Theron did not make the cut for Mad Max, despite the film getting all those nominations and 6 wins.
That's a tough one. It was a very competitive year. Also, I feel like there was probably some category confusion because she's not the titular role. She got in at Critics' Choice?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, she's probably number 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that range. But I would love the nomination. I mostly love Mad Max Fury Road. Again, you can tell it's a woman's story directed by a dude, but still, I think it's a masterpiece of, just technical filmmaking. Yeah. And Charlize, innocent. And all of that on-set drama. Tom Hardy, go to therapy.
Yeah. I think even with the Critics' Choice nomination, I just don't think it was taken seriously as a performance. I know we had Sandra Bullock or Naomi Watts getting in for similar-ish action films, but I feel like Mad Max is a little more B-movie genre feeling, and they don't really go for this kind of thing.
Yeah, Mad Max getting in and winning stuff is just sheer force of will of people loving that movie because it underperformed, and also all the on-set nastiness was very well publicized for years, so I feel like there was probably something about that there that they did not want to deal with the actors.
The Ghost of Glenda Miss Jackson If You Nasty said, why was there no room for Lily Tomlin for Grandma? Was there only one reserved slot for a woman of a certain age?
I wish. It was never going to happen. It was such a small movie. It's a comedy. It's a comedy about abortion, which, again, we're still reckoning with women being able to have abortions almost a decade later.
I know.
But she would be in my 5 easily. I love Grandma. It is Chelsea Cinema.
Yeah, that is very you-coded.
Also, she's an old lesbian trying to get her granddaughter an abortion. Come on. They weren't going to go for Carol, which was a high art film. They're not going to go for a comedic lesbian abortion movie.
I know. I also just think the movie was too small. It didn't have a good enough campaign for that.
We got the Golden Globe nomination for her, and that felt like the miracle.
Yeah. Hassan and Andrew Carden both want to know what would have happened if Rooney Mara and Alicia Vikander went lead. Do they both make the cut? And could Vikander have won even in lead?
I think they both make the cut. I'm so sorry, Charlotte Rampling and Jennifer Lawrence. I do think Vikander's the runner-up, though, and I hate to say that because I hate that movie and that performance. Yeah,
I think Vikander has a better chance than Mara of getting in. Yeah, probably Charlotte is out first. Jennifer Lawrence, maybe. It's hard to weigh Rooney Mara versus Jennifer Lawrence. It
really is, because Jennifer Lawrence was so hot at the time, and Carol, we saw how they loved Carol.
Yeah, I'm going to be very cynical and say Rooney would not have made it in to lead.
I mean, you might be correct.
Which breaks my heart. But either way, I think Brie Larson still wins. So
yeah.
Okay, this is one of my favorite questions I've ever received from Jason Simone, who said, recast these roles with and the runner-up is supporting members. Joey Gentili, Sophia Simonello, Fritz, Baby Clyde, and Chelsea Eichholz.
I mean, like, sorry to play the queer girly card, but I obviously have to be in Carol. Like, let's be real. Oh, gosh. I'm, like, trying to think. I think Joey Gentili could make sense of Joy.
Yep.
I feel like that chaotic energy works. Fritz, you're my 45 years. I feel like you could devastate anybody. And then, oh gosh, this is Sophia and Baby Clyde. So I'm going to say, you know what? I'm going to wish a lovely romance for Sophia. So Sophia, you get to be in Brooklyn.
Wow.
And yeah, Baby Clyde, congrats. You're in Room and you win an Oscar.
There you go. Love that for you. I love that combination.
I
came up with a very different group.
Yes, please.
Well, I do agree on Joey has the chaotic energy of Joy. That would be great. I think that makes sense.
Make sense of it, yeah.
I said Fritz in Brooklyn.
Love that. I can
Someone
see
who
it.
is very earnest and passionate and just transcends country
a romantic
barriers.
at heart, yeah.
Right, yeah. Baby Clyde is Cate in 45 years, British, very smart, observant.
Yes.
I could see it. Chelsea, for you, I mean, the Carol makes sense, but I'm actually going to say Room.
I could do it.
Yeah,
I could do it. I'm a schemer. I'm a plotter.
You like Brie Larson. I feel like you have the
Love
best,
Brie Larson.
you like nieces and nephews bonding energy. I think
That's
you
true.
know,
Great with children.
I think you could come up with a similar plan that Joy does in the film. So yes, and I'm gonna say Sophia and Carol. I think
spiritually this makes sense.
Evocative
Sophia
of the
is
past.
Cate Blanchett,
Loves Cate Blanchett. Great fashion sense. You know,
would look amazing in all those outfits.
Yeah. So there you go. I can't wait for the response to all of those from all those guests to that question.
Right.
Okay, last question from, speaking of which, Sophia Simonello. In honor of your guest, how would these women fare on Survivor? How would each of them deal with Rome and or Banu? Do any of them get to join the Black Widow Brigade? Who has a meltdown when they are not chosen for a reward?
Okay, this is going to be a little deranged. I think these women would do pretty well on Survivor, like across the board, all of them, because they've been through some shit.
Yes.
I do think Carol might kill Rome and or Banu, like from these current and past season. And all of them joined the Black Widow Brigade, but Jennifer Lawrence, she's voted out first because that's just a lot of energy that nobody knows how to handle. I think Joy is our Amanda who makes it to Final Tribal but loses because, like, personality-wise, she doesn't have it together. I think Carol goes far but gets cut. And then, honestly, I think Saoirse wins this. She's played the long game. And I believe Charlotte Rampling's Cate would have a meltdown when they're not chosen for a reward because she wants to be somebody's first choice, and she's not even in Survivor.
That's excellent.
Sophia, I'm wearing my Survivor hat just for you and Kevin.
Yes, and we love that. I don't think any of them other than Joy would have any patience for Rome or Banu, so just throwing that out there. Yeah. I also can see a lot of them as members of the Black Widow Brigade, honestly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I could see Joy, the Room Joy, having a little bit of a meltdown if she isn't picked for a reward, just because, like, sometimes she doesn't, you know, psychologically, it's maybe her head's not in the right place at certain times. I think Cate from 45 years could also have a meltdown, but I could also see her in, like, a Denise Stapley type of role where, like, she's just very, like, centered and could be very good at keeping things withheld and, like, subtly manipulating people, right? Maybe. So I feel good about her chances. Carol, I cannot see hacking it on Survivor, to be quite honest. I just don't think that's her speed. I think she should be...
It really isn't. She might be
a Real Housewife
out.
or a traitor or just not Survivor.
They'd all be wonderful on Traitors as well.
They would. But I agree that Eilish has the best chance. She's a great social player. I think she has a good strategic mind. She's very adaptable.
Yeah.
It's
she's a hot
made for her.
girl, so she could string men along. She is our Parvati.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, she's the Parvati. We're gonna say, Ma, Joy, she's the Suri. She has so many great ideas, but just doesn't come through.
Yeah. Yep. All right. That was fun. Let's get to our final segment where we'll reveal who we think was the runner-up of this Best Actress race. Chelsea, who do you think it was?
Okay. Just going on who was nominated everywhere. Got some critics' love as well. Their film did moderately better than some of these one-and-done nominations. I think it was Saoirse Ronan. Had the best chance of winning out of all of these because there was so much baggage to the other three.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think even though this wasn't really a race, I think the fact that Brooklyn got into Best Picture is the clearest indication of any that she had support. Even if it wasn't as strong as the support for Brie.
Yeah,
so.
And like she's a previous nominee that people really liked. She's a child star that grew up to be okay. So yeah, I think this is Saoirse's runner-up moment.
Yeah. But who would you have voted for from this lineup?
Probably obvious, but Brie Larson. I will say, great winner. 3 amazing other nominees, and Jennifer Lawrence, you survived that set and you broke free. You hopped out of that truck like Jacob Tremblay and said, peace out. So yes, Brie Larson got my vote immediately. Again, I saw this movie like 5 times in theaters. I was a depressed girly. I love it. I'll watch this movie anytime it's on.
Fully expected you to pick Brie there. I would have voted for Charlotte Rampling, actually.
I had a feeling.
Yep. That is exactly the kind of
would have
performance
been a great win. Yeah.
I like in this category. It's the same reason I voted for Emmanuelle Riva. It's just like the subtlety, the facial expression. She says so much without saying anything at all. I would have had some pause after her comments, I will say. So, you know, I would have maybe considered Cate Blanchett or Saoirse Ronan or Brie Larson if, you know, the whole racist against whites thing came out, I'd be like, okay, well, let's look at our other options. But in a vacuum, I think Charlotte Rampling gives the most effective performance for me personally. But Chelsea, this was wonderful, as always. Thank you so much for joining me. I always love having you on.
Thanks for having me. Cannot wait till the next phase of this. You already know what I want you to do with it, which is not what other people think you're going to do. So
yes.
I want the best for you, and what a great show. Look what you've done. This is so great. You've watched so many movies.
I've watched so many movies. I've rewatched movies I would never want to watch, but yet.
You will never have to watch Cimarron again.
And thank you for that. Thank God. So, yeah, I appreciate it. Where can people find more of you on the internet?
I am Chelsea725 on the Twitter, the Blue Sky, the Letterboxd. You can follow me there. Sometimes I podcast. We just started dropping the Q Division, which is a James Bond movie marathon. I do that with Gavin from the Mixed Reviews, and we just dropped our introductory episode, and I'm watching all of these movies for the first time because I've only seen bits and pieces of anything else and just like iconography in a video game. So follow that, and then sometimes I do stuff on the And a Rewatch feed. We watch sometimes The Traitors or Survivor or something. It's a good time. We're very silly, and I love soap operas.
Keeping busy.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you all so much for listening. You can find me on all platforms, including Blue Sky, on Kevin_Jacobson, and the show's at Oscar Runner-Up, Instagram at And Runner-Up is. Rate, review, and subscribe if you haven't already, and if you like what you heard, go to patreon.com/andtherunnerup is, where you can hear a whole bunch of bonus episodes. In 2 weeks, we'll be breaking down the Best Actress lineup of 2016, where the nominees were Isabelle Huppert in Elle, Ruth Negga in Loving, Natalie Portman in Jackie, Emma Stone in La La Land, and Meryl Streep in Florence Foster Jenkins, with the winner being Emma Stone. So with that, thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you for having me.
And I'll bid you all adieu.